We love Whit experimenting with bottles.
It's been.
You think he can't fit that whole thing up there, but he can.
And when it comes back out, you know what it sounds like?
The nice thing is that's the sound of both sticking your dick in the bottle and pulling the bottle out of your asshole.
Out of your ass, yeah,
both
no.
at the same time.
Pretty exciting, yeah.
Yeah, there's so
That
much you
just
can
shows
do
that-
with a bottle.
That's the Lord's plan. You know, he intended us to do both.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful when you say it like that.
Wow. I haven't felt this way in a while, going back to the old fucking slop.
I know. Last time we did an Odyssey, I made you guys listen to one episode, and this is a full slate once more for our fans, for the piggies.
I don't like you saying the word slop after a bottle has been removed from an anus. Yeah.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the worst of all possible worlds, the first and only podcast removing our penis from a bottle every week. I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
We are back for yet another installment for the first time in like 2 months of Wit's Endless Summer,
That's
the
right.
ongoing sub-series of the worst of all possible worlds, in which we listen to episodes of the children's radio drama Adventures in Odyssey, brought to you by Focus on the Family, the hyper-right-wing Christian organization based out of Colorado Springs, Colorado 80995. And joining us today, we have, for the first time, and it's been, I looked at the calendar actually,
Yeah,
it's been almost exactly 1 year. When this episode releases, it will have been 364 days since the last time we had you on the show.
I'm
Trevor
just like
Strunk.
Santa. Yeah, hi. Happy to be here.
Hello,
I thought
Trevor.
You told me this was a hyper left-wing show generated around a possible utopia called Wit's End.
Yeah, were you surprised?
I'm a
when,
little disappointed by what I found. This is a lot different.
why don't you go ahead and tell the good people about yourself?
Well, my name's Trevor Strunk. I do a podcast called No Cartridge. It's about video games and stuff. Josh has been on it. We've also done live shows. That's mainly how I met AJ and Brian as well. I got to know Josh through the podcast and through some live shows. I have a book called Story Mode. I like to think about Prompto a lot with my friends.
And playing as him potentially someday,
Maybe.
fingers crossed.
Hard to say.
I don't want to get my hopes up. I will say, I thought of you guys. One of the games I play a lot of, too much of, is Final Fantasy 14, the Final Fantasy MMO.
Mm-hmm.
And in that game, there's a bit, basically like a promotional bit where you could win the car. Well, not win, but buy basically the car from Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, the one that they push?
With enough in-game currency. And
It's called the Regalia. Excuse me.
Yeah.
It is called the Regalia, and it can fly.
It is called the Regalia. No, it can in this game too.
Oh, cool.
So it's the closest you can get to playing as Prompto in this
I
in this
will not
blasted
rest
world.
until I can actually play as Prompto. As God is my witness.
But yeah, I like video games and stuff, and I like media, and we're apparently talking about that today. This was cool because
Media in the largest quotation marks in the history of time.
Media does matter, but only in this particular way. But one thing I liked about this was I listened to a lot, like mostly when it's like late. Like I listen to a lot of like garbage at work because I have to keep my mind off work. But I listen to radio dramas like Suspense.
Oh, okay.
The old stuff. Like from the 50s.
Particularly when it's like late at night and I can just listen to it. I like Vincent Price's The Saint, stuff like that. I mean, there's really good stuff. They're fun to listen to. They're up and down. They're uneven. Totally. But what I found really interesting about this is like some version of those, but like it is kind of like awful.
I wouldn't say kind of.
Well, no. So there were moments where I was like found myself kind of enjoying it, which was really exciting.
Of course.
Like ultimately, it's just like everything about it. You're just like, oh, this is just like all the bad stuff about radio drama. Like every time someone's like, Vincent Price is in a room and he'll be like, oh, Saint, I wouldn't move if I were you. Oh, is that so? Well, what if I did?
Right.
Now take a nap there, sucker. And it's like, all right, well, the saint just did something really cool, and I couldn't see
have
it.
a piece of this. Click, click. What's that? A gun? Like that kind of shit.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And like that was all here, but like also none of like the wonderful acting I expect outside of Whit, who was of course brilliant.
It's Whit's Endless Summer, and we're just living in it.
I was saying to AJ last night while we were recording,
because he just came on No Cartridge. Yeah,
I don't know which one will come out first, but you'll hear both of them around the same time. We were talking, and I said, like one of the things that I liked about these shows was like how much like Whit seemed to be like this strange like nebulous figure in the world. Like I couldn't place him. I couldn't place what Whit's End was. I couldn't figure out what was going on with any of it, other than like it existed in this sort of like awful, heavily Christian middle world.
Yes.
where nothing was permanent. And it reminded me a lot of like eating dinner at my like evangelical friends' houses or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some, unappetizing food and conversation that couldn't veer into any direction.
Oh, I feel like you and AJ have that in common, actually. But
why are there raisins in this potato salad?
But Whit himself, no, you're right. Whit is such an impish, like mercurial character. He's the Guinan of Adventures in Odyssey.
Yeah. So Brian, you selected 5 episodes for us this time around. 2 two-parters and 1 one-parter.
We're going back to 5 episodes sometimes in this next year, because I am working on the countdown to Regis Blackguard's return. The devious Dutchman, that horrific Satan-worshipping child psychologist, will be back in Odyssey come 2024.
Yes.
We actually worship Satan?
Actually, yeah, kind of.
It's on the line.
I didn't know if they would actually like go that far. Like I know there are people who have like sins.
They do summon demons in one very famous episode.
Yes. Wow.
The one that we talked about with Scott Benson in the early days. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're
Castles and Cauldrons.
Yes.
If you're thinking about summoning a demon, no one better than Scott.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
So what that means is this year we are in the death march. We are headed towards this return by hook and by crook. Hal Smith will die, Whit will leave Odyssey, and Regis Blackguard will return, and the millennium will begin. I swear it upon my dead mother's grave.
Millennium approaches.
She is alive.
Your mother is very much alive. Why would you lie?
Yeah, she's doing fine. She's not even retired.
So, Brian,
great.
These 5 episodes, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you selected these and kind of like what pulls them together? And then we'll get into actually, recapping them.
So what I was thinking for this first episode back, I thought, let's talk about some fun stuff. We're going to have some really dour shit in like the next episode. Woo! But right now, I just thought, let's explore some of the history of Whit's End, which is going to become more and more important, and look at a little bit of John Avery Whittaker's own history as well, as to the other 30 jobs that he has besides being ice cream shop proprietor.
So is Whit's End an ice cream shop? What is Whit's End?
That's a great question, Trevor.
What is your impression of Whit's End? What did you think
how do
it
you
was at the
picture
end
it
of the
in
day?
your head?
It's a place where all the kids go to hang out.
Yes.
It also sells food.
Yes.
It has a train room, and it's a house that people don't live in but tend to explore as if it's their own home.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
You're much of the
There's
way
also
there.
the worst hangout spot of all time.
Yeah, there's also a room that's full of Bible exhibits, and it has a time machine.
Correct.
Trevor, there is also a room in this place that I have yet to see actually on the show called the Room of Consequences.
Oh, no. I don't like that. Is it like a hell house?
Well, we call it the no-no door. Like the door that goes in, we call it the no-no door. It's something you don't open.
Which is terrifying. I would never open a consequence door.
Oh, yeah, no.
So as, of course, we know, Whit has had many jobs: school teacher, encyclopedia owner, possible intelligence asset writer. This incoming episode, he wrote some feature for a magazine that they keep referring to as though it happened on the show, and it absolutely fucking didn't.
Well, they needed that because they needed a reason why the mysterious stranger showed up at Whit's End. So they needed to be like, Whit, that article you wrote in that national newspaper is still getting it's not even like, hey, guess what? I wrote an article. It was is still getting responses from people who loved it weeks after.
And the other important thing is that not only does Whit have a lot of history, but this building has a lot of history. Of course, we know he bought it. It was a rec center, And we know it was like a few other things before. We know about the previous owners of the property who died after falling into holes.
Yep.
Multiple times.
Not good. That's rough.
You fall into one hole, shame on you. You fall into a hole twice, shame on me.
Shame on me for telling you to go in those holes.
Yeah.
Max Payne's just standing on the edge going, I love it. I love those fucking holes.
Whit actually bought the deed to the land from the town. The lore is deep, and it just keeps getting deeper.
Yeah, the city council wanted to turn it into a video arcade, which of course would have made our teenagers degenerate. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's where they would go to worship the devil.
Yeah, exactly.
Check out our other episode with Scott Benson on This Press in Darkness for more info on that.
It's like, hey, do you want your kids to have fun, or do you want them to be so bored they have to play with a train?
So in the chronology of this series, we have already discovered a dead body in the basement. We solved the mystery related to that dead body in the basement. And now we're hanging out in the attic of Whit's End.
Yes. Ooh, what's in the attic?
Okay, just a couple more boards here and we'll see what's behind this door.
This is so exciting. I mean, a boarded up room that no one's noticed for years. Right here in Whit's End.
Well, this place is pretty big, Robin. I imagine there are rooms here that I've never really explored.
How?
You know what it's like to be in a house. You just eventually you forget about the rooms.
How big is this house?
Did he not inspect the property before he bought it? And then once he did he not look everywhere? What is happening?
Whit's End is that house from that horror novel where the inside is bigger than the outside.
Yeah, it's House of Leaves.
House of Leaves.
So this is the
That's
first.
More right than you know, Trevor.
This is how the episode "The Treasure of LaMonde" begins. Yes, this is the
LaMonde.
episode. Ooh, LaMonde.
Frenchman.
This is episode 102, written by Phil Lawler.
Our favorite, Phil Lawler.
Is he not good?
So Phil Lawler is basically a moron. He's just a very stupid man.
Yeah, he writes a lot of Odyssey episodes that really try to go for the comedy in a big way, and you can tell because Lol is right in his name. But he is just so inept as a storyteller that it nothing ever congeals or coheres into things. It all just feels like a diet version of McCusker.
He's a master of telling rather than showing.
Yeah, as we'll see in this clip when they uncover an organ in the attic.
Whoa, look at that.
Well, I'll be.
It's an organ.
Oh, not just an organ. It's an antique pipe organ.
Why would an organ be up here?
Oh, maybe because this used to be a church.
I thought it was a recreation center before you turned it into Whit's End.
Well, it was, but before it was a rec center, part of it was the town church.
Sure.
You see, years ago, the main sanctuary burned down. But
why not?
This tower stayed up. Everyone liked it so much, they decided to build the rec center around it.
Thanks. Okay.
So they just demolished the church, right? Or was it burned down in a fire?
So the church burned down, but the tower of the church remained. So they kept it and then built a house.
Okay,
around the tower.
So this might be like, no, of course, this might be
it's
like
a house tower.
giving something away maybe later on. But do we know who started the fire?
We didn't. We didn't start the fire.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Trouble in the Congo.
Here's a question for all of you at this point.
Yeah.
We're up in the attic here. And by the way, along with Whit, we've got Robin, who we'll remember is one of the girls who hangs around.
Yeah,
and
she's
Connie,
the older daughter of the newspaper editor, Dale Jacobs, who is played by Phil Lawler.
Yes. And Connie, who exists in a state of perpetual indentured servitude to Whit. Here's my question for all of you. How many things can Whit's End be before it becomes incoherent?
Before? it's deeply incoherent.
Yeah, because you were literally just thrown to the wolves on this, Trevor, because you had never heard this show before.
I thought this was a Baskin Robbins.
I didn't ice cream doesn't even come up once in these episodes.
That's a good point.
Wait, your Cold Stone doesn't have secret rooms that house ancient organs?
Whit only gets bills and extremely sensitive missives from the American government.
Right.
Yeah, that's all of his mail.
so
That's
weird.
canonically all of his mail. You're not even exaggerating.
I know.
No,
Well, yeah, because Connie's like, why don't you get catalogs? I get those at my home, Connie.
I mean, you didn't hear the episode where they went to Chicago and it was strongly implied that Whit is an active member of the United States intelligence community, which is why he has like a laptop in 1989 and shit like that.
Yeah, he's an early
if I were
adopter.
American intelligence, I would be trying to get Whit because he's friends with every single missionary from everywhere in
Right.
the world.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very, very true. He also designed an AI, right? Like,
Yeah.
Whit fully designed
he
a
built
sentient
Shodan.
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a time machine, like
Yes,
a
and
fully
an actual
reactive
literal
virtual
time
reality theater. But anyway, we're up in this attic and we were hanging out with a thing that Whit did not make, this pipe organ. Because they just moved a board out of the way. There's a lot of visual description in this episode. There's just a lot of, look over there, it's a board. There's something behind the board. It's an organ. Not
It's
just
really
any
weird.
organ, an organ with pipes. More
Yeah.
than one pipes.
The better episodes of Adventures in Odyssey will give minimum exposition and allow the sound design to do the storytelling because it's, a radio drama. But no, here it's like, well, looks like I've got to play a song here on this organ. Oh, no.
I mean, so there's this interminable bit, and I did not keep this part, where she's trying to play Fur-Elise on the organ, and she just can't do it. It's like, it could be funny because it is like, that's how kids are. They're terrible at organ.
It's just embarrassing. It's sad. You're just watching someone fail.
Get through it. But anyway, she hits a key that doesn't move.
Aha! No wonder middle C wouldn't work. Something stuffed inside the pipe.
Really? What is it?
Well, just give me a minute.
D's nuts.
Well, look at this.
There
It's an
it
old
is.
gray rag. Hey, look, it has writing on it.
It's an old gray rag. It has writing on it. Again, it's like you found a note.
Yep.
You found a note in a pipe.
Can we get that rag popping out one more time? There it is.
Yeah.
So
Everybody's doing that John Avery Whittaker rag.
also it's like that's not what a rag popping out of something sounds like. That sounds like a bottle
Josh.
popping.
I went and tried this out at home.
Oh, on your
I stuffed
pipe
a
organ?
rag into a pipe.
Yeah.
And I pulled it out, and this is the recording of me pulling the rag out of the pipe. Now
Yeah.
see if you can tell the difference.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I mean, you're right. It's pretty simple.
I also came. I don't know
nice,
why.
nice.
But
Well, so
I
did
did.
Whit.
They give this note to Robin to read, and this is the beginning of our adventure.
I, Rufus Cowley, do hereby attest the words you now read are truest and best.
Okay, speed
Your
it up.
course
Come on.
now is set, the path now you're on, to the greatest of riches, the treasure LaMonde.
Oh, there we go.
This prize you may find,
Oh, God, there's a part 2.
a heating said adage, start in the center and play a deaf cabbage.
That's a half rhyme, first of all, Phil. And
Why in the world did I'm giving it away, I guess, but we end up finding out that this is written by some thief, basically.
yeah, this is a
fortune
guy
hunter.
looking for the treasure. This is
After
not the guy
he
who
killed
left it
his
behind.
partner.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
why did he write a poem?
We didn't stop writing in verse until about 64.
Just getting a note from like a thug who wants to like beat me up for my money. It's like, roses be red and violets be pretty. Avoid being street unless you are witty. Oh God, I'm in a lot of trouble.
Well, it's sort of also the adventure game thing, isn't it? It's like, oh, I found this item and it says this thing, but because the writing is inept, the actual like thing that's written on there, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would this be the nature of the clue? Another point that I need to make here: how did they fit a pipe organ? How did they get the pipe organ into the attic?
Yeah, that's not just a organ, like a reed organ or something.
It's part of the church.
It was in the church, and they put it in the tower later.
Wait, wasn't
when
it
the
in
church
tower?
burned?
Wait, wasn't it in the tower because like the church burned, the rest of the church burned, and it just happened to be in there?
Well, okay, so
They made it sound like it got moved.
Was the sanctuary in the attic?
so there was
the church was a tower. It was just a tower church.
So there was
Whitset has many doors.
it's very interesting because there was a whole episode where like Whit went up there and he found Connie, and there was this guy with this mask over his face, and he was playing like the organ as loud as he could, and he just kept telling Connie to sing for him.
Right,
and
right,
it was
right.
like, you know,
Yeah.
it.
Angel of music, things of that nature.
I think things such as this. But we're off on this like national treasure adventure now, I guess. And I just kept thinking about like how I knew every single story beat that was going to come, and it just took like an extra 4 or 5 beats to get there.
Right. Yeah.
I also like that Hal Smith says, I didn't grab a clip of it, but he says treasure a few times, and he says it exactly like Frank Welker as Fred from Scooby-Doo, where people have noticed that Frank Welker always says treasure.
Oh,
Yes.
Whit says the same thing.
that's
treasure.
right.
It's a regionalism.
I don't think they're from the same place because Hal Smith is from Petoskey, Michigan. And I think.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, I don't
He's
think
another
Frank
Michigan.
Welker is a Midwesterner.
No, there's too much Michigan in this show.
It's Oops All Michigan.
Petoskey. Oh, it's more of a Lansing expression. So the thing I don't get about this note is that like I don't understand why it wasn't just. I mean, I do, because the way you described it helps me out, because now I understand that this guy isn't good at writing radio dramas, which is his job. I think it's weird that he didn't just have the note say "play a deaf cabbage."
Right.
And it'd be like, what could that mean? That's nonsense. And then like she figures it out later. You don't need like, remember this adage.
No, or you could.
Heed this adage. What child is supposed to understand that line?
All kids understand what an adage is.
You could also set it up in such a way where you are actually getting information about who this guy is, but they don't do that either. They do that in the next part, because then they go over to a community college and they talk to this professor.
What's that professor's name? AJ, did you write it down?
Yeah. Aldous Webster.
When I heard he was a community college professor in Odyssey, I was like, oh, so you're just going to go ask the most miserable man in the world a question. It's like, no, I'm creating all this crap. Go away, Whit.
Professor Webster, is science real? Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm getting all the kids from Wits End.
The community college is really important in this series, right? Because Eugene is at the community college. The Richard Maxwell stuff happened over there. Like it is the nexus of all information on Earth.
You'd have Whit over there all the time, just like constantly being your friend, because that's what he wants to do, but then also constantly undermining you.
Yes.
Like,
Yes. I've got connections in the encyclopedia industry.
I don't know, man. Like I learned that Cortes had a magic cross from my friend Whit. No, that's not how history worked. Like, please stop.
The only thing I got from Whit was mesothelioma from breathing in all that black mold in the attic.
But Whit calls it Satan's lung.
Then there really is a LaMonde treasure?
Oh, yes. Named after Henri LaMonde, a French nobleman. The LaMondes moved to Canada just before the French Revolution, taking much of their wealth with them. Well, unfortunately, everyone but Henri died of plague on the way over.
That's terrible.
Well, LaMonde viewed his survival as a miracle, and so he became a missionary to the Indians. Legend has it that wherever he set up a mission, he buried part of his family fortune nearby.
Why?
And one of those places was Odyssey?
The last one, actually.
It's like they did the Johnny Appleseed episode, and it's like, what if we did a Johnny Appleseed for treasure?
Right.
Now?
And also he's French for some reason.
Greg Berg was Fozzie on the Muppet Babies.
That's why it sounds familiar.
Plays a lot of generic NPC voices in like EverQuest 2,
I was gonna
Hitman
say,
Absolution.
He has an extreme NPC voice.
He's in Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns, and he's just a go-to NPC guy.
Wow. That's so exciting. He really sounds like it too. Like I'm listening. I'm just like, that sounds just like he's the judge in 8 episodes of Garfield and Friends.
Yeah.
I guess 8 episodes of Garfield and Friends ended in a courtroom. He plays young Bob Hope on Night Court.
We've got now everything set up for the thrilling story of the treasure LaMonde. And we also get even more exposition about Rufus Callie, like the fortune hunter for some reason. It's a mess. This shit's a mess. But what it comes...
I also don't know. Is it Cowley or Callie? Because they just keep mispronouncing.
They use both pronunciations. It's hard to say.
Drives me sick because Rufus Cowley sounds like a name that Batman makes up on the fly when he needs like an alter ego.
It's Batman's Tobias Reaper.
Rufus. Cave. Kelly.
But the big thing that we get here then is the question of, what is a deaf cabbage? What could this possibly mean?
It better be for cuties.
And to be fair,
cabbage
they
for
set this
cuties.
up in such a way where if you're a kid, they give you enough time to kind of figure this out, which I appreciated. I understand why they laid it out in this way. I immediately was like, those are, letters on a keyboard, right? Like that's their notes.
I remember from my piano lessons.
That's right.
With Mrs. Toady.
That's right, Brian.
Mrs. Toady?
Yeah, she was my piano teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, shout outs to Mrs. Ricecamp. That's Robin, as she's puzzling over the meaning of a deaf cabbage, she starts to feel a certain kind of way.
I want that treasure. Just think of all the stuff I could buy with it. I've gotta get it. I have to. Whatever it takes, I'll get it if I have to. What am I saying? I've never felt this way before.
Oh, boy.
It's like I'm hungry for money.
Genuine lull for me, actually. I give Phil Aller a lot of shit for not being funny, and I don't think he meant to be funny there.
No, that's supposed to be dramatic.
That was an extremely serious moment, Brian.
Right, right.
Legitimately funny line, though. Broken clock is right twice a day.
It's like I'm hungry for money.
I don't like how much this scene sounds like she's having an awakening.
I agree.
I don't appreciate it.
But Robin, because she has the Lord, she has Christ in her heart.
Right.
She loves the Lord with all of her heart, all of her mind, all of her strength.
I love her prayer so much.
Yeah.
She gets over it. She stops being greedy. Unlike Whit,
correct,
who is always greedy, and she instead focuses her mind on pondering the mystery, right? On pondering this puzzle, and realizes as she's practicing piano in her head,
in her brain,
that she could also practice a deaf cabbage in her head on the organ, but not in her head in real life.
And indeed, a deaf cabbage is a melody that she could play. And the very next morning, she gets to Wit's End early. Connie opens up for her, but Professor Webster is already there somehow.
What are we waiting for? Come on, Professor, let's get going. Yeah.
You are not going anywhere.
What?
Get back there.
What?
What are you doing, Professor? Don't you want to get the treasure?
Oh, I am going to get it, my dears. All
like
by
this.
myself.
Bad vibes from this guy.
I don't like the way she says it. I don't like how sort of like everything in this show sounds a bit lascivious. It really upsets me. What are you doing, Professor?
What are you doing, step bro?
It's like, this is awful. There's a moment at the end of the episode where Whit's like, well, it was very generous of you not to press charges. I was like, he abducted me.
Yeah. These are children. These are children.
But
Connie's like, what, 15, 16? Robin's like 11, 12?
Yeah, like, I'm not trying to say, like, let's prosecute everyone. I'm not trying to be that guy. But, like, boy, if there's ever a reason to call the police to at least get some protection set in. That's the one.
This guy's got a problem.
Yeah.
He should not be around kids.
No.
He's a teacher.
Yes.
So the big thing is like, she played a deaf cabbage. I did not grab that clip. It just sounds so awful.
It's dumb.
No, it's okay. It's
really
just transcendentalism. So, I think a lot of people, that's a lot of people's favorite, but they probably could have done, I've seen the results that I'm voting yes.
What?
A deaf cabbage for cuties.
Oh,
what?
You took the deaf cabbage for cuties further. That's good. I like that.
I don't know
when
about
she
that
plays
one.
it, the secret doors open up and there's a telescope that no one knew about as well.
Yep.
And the telescope is looking not at heavenly things, but earthly things. Is looking down at a cave.
This is missed. This is just missed. And I don't know how they did it. This episode was before Mist, but
it's a prequel to Mist.
Just to point out, to get to the cell,
This is a prequel to Riven.
That's right, AJ. To get to the Selenitic age, you have to go into that spaceship and you have to play the melody on the keyboard. There's the sliding wall that's like the bookcase in the library that you use to access the tower. Additionally, there's the telescope that you find in Sears's room in the mechanical age that you use, and then you use it and you look out at the guy who's being hanged or whatever. Remember this? Remember Mist, guys? Do you guys remember Mist? I remember Mist.
Hey, more like Atris Webster.
You know, it is more like that. I was just surprised that the little poem, about a deaf cabbage didn't say at the bottom, remember the tower rotation.
Why is this rag green? The others have been red and blue. I don't think about this too deep.
Whit finally comes upstairs, and for some reason, Whit wasn't planning on coming up to the attic that he just discovered today.
Right,
He was like,
right,
"Oh, it's a
right.
lucky thing I came up here."
Oh, Mr. Whittaker, he knows where the treasure is.
Now. Just
Pleasure.
calm down, Robin. We'll go after him, but I want to take a look at this telescope first. It's pointed toward Tom Riley's property.
Everything's on his property. This guy is like, he pretends to be some little hayseed white trash farmer. He is a massive landowner on the edge of town.
Oh, I was going to ask, because it was weird that they name dropped him and then he's just not in the episode.
Yeah.
Well, we'll also remember that Tom Riley's farm was the land that the federal government was attempting to expropriate to build a new highway through, right? They were going to build an expressway
until they found Johnny
through it.
Appleseed's cabin there. And,
Right.
and also Edgebiter Chemical Company was dumping chemical waste onto Tom Riley's farm.
Property rights are so fucking fundamental in this show. It is so there is a certain class of people. They are the landowning, gentry, and their right to this land is paramount, because if other people controlled that land, it wouldn't be put to its best use, frankly.
And so they go to this cave.
Yep.
They chase after Webster, who's trying to get the treasure by himself, because they find out, oh no, there's traps. He said so many traps, so many deadly traps. Like there's a rope. And so they crawl through this cave.
This is the cave on Tom Riley's farm? Question mark?
Yeah. It's like, wow, there's a secret cave that has all these booby traps. And Tom Riley's like, yeah, that's a secret cave filled with booby traps and not my own private recreational center for fun. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about
Trevor,
it.
you love a farm with its own cave, don't you?
No, I do. We've talked about this like 100 times.
That's like the thing we've talked about the second most. Number one, of course, being playing as Prompto.
Playing Prompto. Number 1.5 being the Thief games. And number 2 being how much I would enjoy having a slice of heaven that also had a cave on it.
What is this? Tom Stoppard's Arcadia?
Hey.
Yeah.
That's who's that for?
Boy.
That's for Tom Stoppard.
Arcadia Webster.
He's a patron.
So he's making his way. So they make their way through this cave, and Whit has sort of what I consider to be a transcendental experience while trying to squeeze through a crack.
Yeah.
It's very narrow.
And pops right out the other side.
They are predicting video games, because then Uncharted happens like 30 years later, and everyone's pushing their way between two cliffs in order so that you don't have to have a load screen.
This is a question that I have for you, Trevor. You talk about video games on your show.
I've done it
a lot.
before. I've been accused.
You know a thing or two about video games.
I will strike again.
Did this episode feel at all like a video game to you?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, the next episode felt way more like a video game.
Sure.
Yeah. It almost felt more like a Flash game, like a game that was like almost primitive in its video gameness.
Right.
Where like you're kind of like you're sort of figuring out like, okay, what direction do I have to go? Like how do I unlock this one sequence so I can see the big reveal or whatever?
Yeah.
And like the big reveal in this case is like Whit tells you about a Bible, but
why don't we get to that big reveal there? That's really that's really cool.
All right, Aldous. The treasure's yours.
At last! Oh, there it is. Wrapped in this cloth is wealth beyond compare. What? No, it can't be.
What's the matter? What is it?
It's a Bible.
Wow.
Well, what do you know?
So it's the Book of Eli.
well, what do you know?
So, the greatest treasure of all, the word of our Lord.
The word of
Praise
thanks be to God. I think it's interesting here too. Like before that happens, Webster tries to open up the box and he gets sprayed with green paint. or some
Green
green
paint
dye.
that smells super bad. Apparently,
Very
we needed
weird,
that
yeah.
detail.
It does sound like snakes, and I'm really
Yeah.
sad it wasn't
Yeah,
snakes.
yeah. No, it's just green
a bunch
dye.
of dead, long dead snakes from 150 years ago.
Just like plummet from the roof on top of him. Oh,
And
that was not thought through.
The whole reason that Whit lets him have the Bible in the first place is I guess there's a little note inside the box saying, "To the man of green, give the thing for his sheen," or some fucking bullshit. I don't remember what the poem is, but it's like, yeah, Whit would not have given him the treasure were it not for the fact that there was this little note that was like, yeah, the green guy, he should get it.
it was deeded to him by common law.
That's right.
I love the fact that that LaMonde knew. So LaMonde is also a missionary, like
Right.
all good people who are not Wit in the Odyssey universe.
Correct.
Right.
You're either Wit, a missionary, or Wit slave, or a stranger come to town. It was weird that like it's this missionary, but I guess he's like kind of a goofy missionary, and he loves to have fun despite his family dying of plague.
Missionaries love doing pranks.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not use your family fortune to improve the missions, man?
That's not.
No, you gotta bury it. You gotta bury it around because it's fun. You gotta be like that guy in like where was it, like Arizona or something, where he was like, I got this secret treasure, and if anyone
My
finds
home
it,
state of New Mexico.
there
Yes.
you go. Someone found it, as I remember.
Someone did find it last year or the year before. Yeah.
We
He's
should
very
talk
Wittish.
about the logic here, though. This guy, who, yes, had this vast fortune, I guess, who was also a missionary, decided to bury a Bible in a special little box that was spring-loaded to spray out some sort of green dye. This mechanic was preserved for a century plus, question mark?
Yes.
And the whole reason that this happened was that he somehow knew that when people got to the special box, that the green dye would spray out on the greediest guy, and then he would be taught a lesson because when he opened the box, he would find a Bible inside. Am I getting this right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Great.
Brian, does Webster come back ever?
No.
Okay.
Webster never returns. This is it for him. But like you said, Trevor,
good.
he doesn't go to
Yeah.
jail.
Right.
Whit is just like, it's okay that you assaulted my employee and a small child whose parents might have something to say about this whole situation.
But now, I mean, all that means is that in my head canon, Professor Webster is now permanently stained green.
Yeah.
Right?
It never implied that he was not going to ever be. I mean, it never implied he'd get better.
He just,
like it was like acid that was thrown at his face ostensibly.
well, I like the mental image of he looks like Jim Carrey in The Grinch, right? Like that's
Or The
that's him
Mask.
now. Oh, sure.
No, the Grinch, not the Mask.
Oh, the
Very different.
Thanks, Brian.
Whoa, okay.
There's hair.
There is hair. There's a lot more wrinkles.
Yeah,
the mask is
yeah,
very
true.
Yeah.
smooth.
Yeah.
It's this episode is so deeply weird, and its moral at the end is don't open the doors in Wit's End.
Well, and the big thing that I think is so funny is like, again, like Wit is just like, something happens on my property, I tell the police not to worry about it, and
Right.
they go away.
Because property rights are paramount in Odyssey, including the fact that even the police cannot
That's
encroach
who you
on your
are.
property. They're not even going to try to get a warrant so long as Whit tells them that he's good. And to be honest, Whit probably wouldn't recognize a search warrant anyway.
Oh, no.
And Wit relates this back to the dead man in the basement and is like, you know what? We solved our problems. Let's just paint the basement and the attic green.
Right.
Like that fucking loser's face.
Yeah, remember when we found that guy in the basement? It's a lot like greed. Maybe we'll just paint it green so we don't ever forget about greed again.
The fucking dead body that they found.
Well, all rooms in Wit's End are color coded because there's green rooms for greed. There's rooms for lust, gluttony, wrath, heresy, violence, fraud, betrayal. You don't want to enter the betrayal room.
That's the room of consequences.
That's the room of consequences.
There's also red rooms for where you commit murders on the deep web.
Well, those are red rums, actually.
There you go.
So
Look at this.
my last point to make on this is Wit does not paint these rooms. Did you catch who paints these rooms?
Is it Connie?
Oh, Connie,
It's Connie
and Robin.
And it's Robin, the 10-year-old girl.
Let's go, dude.
Why does she have to paint the room? She doesn't work for you.
She
Because
learned
she
a
felt
lesson.
greed.
Yes.
Brian, she dared to be hungry for money.
That's right. She was hungry for money. And as we all know,
Only wit is allowed.
the only way that you can satiate hunger for money is by painting.
I just imagine at the very end of the episode, it's just she's painting the wall, and then Robin pulls out like a penny from her pocket and goes, shh, Abe, it's just you and me now.
Yeah.
Brownest of the brown liquors. You want me to drink you?
Oh, God.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, I think, is that all of our
That's
thoughts
it.
about
That's
LaMonde?
pretty much,
So,
unless you
like-
had anything else, AJ, or Trevor for that matter.
I did really like that Whit felt powerless in the face of a note saying the man of green shall get my treasure.
Right.
Robin being like, but Mr.
Yeah.
Whittaker, this is crazy. Like he's a bad person. He's like, well, Robin,
Well, it's written down.
there's nothing I can really do about it. I liked Chris try to like shoehorn the worst lessons into this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Chris is the best. Like,
Yeah.
it's really like listening back to this as an adult, I'm like, these are my favorite moments in every episode.
Because how aware do you think Chris was of everything that came before? I'd imagine they just recorded her 2 segments and then let her go
no, they all
home.
record in the room. They're all
Really?
together.
Chris,
Yeah.
Chris had to sit there for
Wow.
the entirety of these sessions?
Not a long session. I mean, they usually, it's equivalent to
Probably
like doing
yeah.
like a sitcom. You
Yeah.
know, it's,
I guess, yeah.
And not as long because you don't have cameras and everything else to wrangle. Let's move on.
Okay.
The Mysterious Stranger, based on the famous incomplete short story by Mark Twain, where Satan's nephew, who also has his name, comes to Earth and has some thoughts.
Yeah,
Wait,
that-
no,
that-
no,
that
it's
does
a little
seem like
different.
it could be that actually.
It's definitely
Right?
not that. It is something much clumsier.
I was going to say that The Mysterious Stranger is my favorite Def Cabbage for Cutie album.
This isn't anything, AJ.
No,
He's- I'm sorry,
This
Josh.
isn't anything.
say,
You were like so committed to doing a bit. And you're like, this is the one.
Josh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, as magistrate of the worst of all possible worlds, I hereby rule that AJ has now made it a thing.
I gotta know but ya on this one, guy.
Yes,
It's just
no.
that's too
I'm
bad.
sorry.
That's too
Brian has
bad.
whipped out the magistrate
Yeah.
wig. He has put it on. He has gotten his gavel and he has banged in my favor.
According to common law,
And what does it sound like when Brian bangs?
There it is.
There it is.
yes. So, The Mysterious Stranger Part 1, written by Paul McCusker. Now, Paul McCusker is the other primary writer around this time.
Yes.
Another weird guy, but what's interesting
but
about
a much
this,
more talented guy.
you can
Yes.
tell that there is craft to this episode, that the first episode is lacking, as well as the other episode that we're going to cover later on.
Yes.
Worth noting too, this is 3 years later. This is a 1993 episode. So like they've,
Goodness.
you know, now instead of just being 3 years into Adventures in Odyssey, they're 6 years into it. And I think they have developed quite a lot as writers because they were still writing about 50 episodes a year.
Yeah, these are episode numbers 244 and 245. So 150-ish episodes after the one that we had listened to previously.
Okay.
Yeah, and Trevor, as somebody who edits audio, like, I mean, could you like tell the leap in sort of Foley that's happened between these two?
No, that's not fair. The quality was the same. The Foley was better.
Yeah.
I mean, they were doing some much more interesting stuff with the Foley. I feel like, and like, you know, just in terms of, oh, we need to make a creepy sound kind of thing. Like it worked a lot better. I kind of believed the scary people who were making voices things better than I did in the first one.
Yeah,
where
for
like
sure.
they went into the cave and Webster was like, oh, and Robin was like, what's that terrifying sound? It's like, I think I know what it is.
Yeah.
That's a man coming.
He what?
He's really like he's like being hung upside down. I've seen it many times before. He's hungry for money, but
You know what I really like? I like the idea of hungry for money being like an old-timey expression for somebody who's gay. Like all of those old expressions are so strange. It's like, is he hungry for money?
Does he go to the automat?
is it the gentleman cousin? Yeah, exactly.
Is he thirsty for Washington?
But yes, The Mysterious Stranger Part 1 begins with a disclaimer that this one might be too scary for children under the age of 10. So I was fully ready for some excitement at this point.
I loved how they told people to go get their parents parent.
Yeah, you got your parents. You went and got your parents, AJ.
No, they listened to it with me, and
Glad to hear it.
they were more scared than I was.
So Connie opens up this episode in the famous words of Destiny's Child, saying, "Bills, bills, bills." She's hoping for more interesting mail to be delivered to Whit.
Yeah,
Whit tells her to get back to work twice.
It's so mean.
Oh, it's
like
so
she's
cruel.
just like, yeah, it would be nice to have some magazines that I could, read in my downtime. And he's like, or you could work more.
It's awesome.
You fucking bitch.
So
what am I paying you
I also
for?
like that Whit, he's like, I keep all the cool catalogs for myself.
Right? What?
It's the Sears catalog.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
personal.
Oh, yeah. And also, I'm sure all of his issues of Popular Mechanics. So a guy steps into Whit's End, and he can't believe that it's real. It's just like he pictured it in his mind.
Wait, you forgot. This is the episode after Whit wrote the magazine article.
Yes.
So keep in mind, Whit has written a magazine article.
And they talk about it
Yes.
as though it was in a previous episode. And I was like digging through old stuff. I wasn't listening to all of them, but I was like, did he write a fucking magazine article earlier? And all I could think was maybe when he wrote something related to that Jesus cloth archaeological thing. But
This is how
was
Whit got his
different.
Pulitzer.
Yeah, this was
exactly.
a feature in House and Garden magazine for Whit's End because it's a house that's an ice cream parlor and it has a time machine and a dead guy in the basement.
It was written up in Current Affairs because it was too terrifying.
A little known fact is that Whit actually is EGOTed in addition to his Pulitzer.
That's right.
I don't believe it.
Hi, can I help you?
It's not possible.
I beg your pardon?
This place, it's real. It's here.
Well, yes, it is. Can I help you?
I don't know. I just need to look at it. Take it all in. Incredible. Just like I pictured it.
Oh, I get it. You saw the article in the Home and Town magazine.
Yes, but that's not what I mean.
Home and town.
No, I found you because of
Place
the
and
magazine
country.
article. But I know this place for another reason.
Really? What reason?
This was my home. I used to live here.
What? That's who? How could that happen?
By the way, I got to say, I love the idea of an equivalent magazine to Town and Country, except rather than being about the lives of the super wealthy, it's about the lives of the merely upper middle class. That's very funny to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but so here's the thing. I don't get how Whit has any authority to be surprised that somebody could have been living in Whit's End because he hasn't gone in any of the rooms.
AJ, have I done nothing? Have I done nothing for you? I have run you through so much of the history of this place. We listened to that really racist episode about how it was like a radio station or whatever. It was never a house. It was never a house. It needs to be explained. It was never
It shouldn't have been a treasure
house.
hoard. To AJ's point, it shouldn't have been a treasure hoard either. And yet.
Right.
No,
they
that's-
retcon
and yet-
shit in all the time.
It's consistent. It's consistent.
No, shut the fuck up.
Wow,
They-
wow.
They did it. It's documented.
It is by no stretch of the
papers.
imagination
Brian, take off the
ludicrous
magistrate wig.
to say
Take off the magistrate wig.
that it
I've got the
could
charts.
be a
I've got the
house.
charts.
Did you just put on a Focus on the Family employee badge? Is that is that an official Focus on the Family lanyard you're wearing there?
Look, I am and have been the dramaturg for Focus on the Family for the last 10 years. It is an unpaid position.
You're doing it just for the love of the game.
I
You
do
do
it
get
for
a
the
fast pass
Lord.
for Whit's End, though. That's nice.
Fast pass.
For Whit's End, you get
I
straight to
get
the front.
one free Wad Fam chalk sod every 3 years.
That's great.
That's
Yeah.
a world-famous chocolate soda for you there,
Oh,
Trevor.
okay,
That's,
great. I'm
that
glad
is
to
some
hear it. Oh,
it's
Heartland.
famous in the world.
It's a horrible, horrible name.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So
Did you say it's a wad? I wanted to say before
we've actually discussed that before as
good,
well.
Good. It's awful. Before we move on, I do want to say,
Give me your wad, fam.
It's very funny that that Whit goes. The guy goes in. He goes, I can't believe it. It's really real. And Whit just goes, hi.
Yeah, it's good.
Hey, how you doing?
What if someone just walks
Auditions for Pippin are down the street.
And he goes on to describe a lot of the things within Whit's End in exquisite detail he couldn't possibly have known.
The stained glass decoration above the kitchen door.
Well, there must be some mistake.
Oh, it's no mistake. You fixed it up differently, of course, but it's no mistake.
Kent, I'm sorry for saying so, but you couldn't have lived here. Not unless you were a lot older than you look.
I'm 28.
I've owned this building for several years now, and for years before that, it was ready for demolition. For decades before that, it was the city's recreation center. So it's just not possible.
There's a servant's staircase in the kitchen, isn't there?
Kent? You have to believe me.
Where is it? It should be right here.
It is. Behind that door. I enclosed it so kids won't play on it.
Like I did when I was a child. It led up to my parents' bedroom.
This one leads to my office, but I keep the door locked.
This is wonderful.
In the kitchen, Connie.
What's in the office?
Many
Whit?
Victorian homes had staircases for the servants, Kent.
So I think this is actually the first time the show fully establishes in the text of the radio drama that it is a Victorian house.
Oh, sure.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's been depicted as such in plenty of artwork up to this point, but I don't believe they actually said it before now. And this gives us the detail of the stained glass over the door,
right,
and the secret staircase that goes up to Whit's office.
Well, I think
that is important.
It's interesting, too, here that Whit's big concern here is not anything really to do with, like, who is this guy? What is his health? You know, blah, blah.
Who are these children coming down?
It's who are these children coming? Yes, exactly. Whose children are they? It's more about who is this man trying to access my property in an unauthorized fashion?
Right. Yeah.
Castle doctrine.
That's right.
I really liked also that, like, he points out, he's like, well, you know, I closed that up so kids wouldn't play out. He goes, I used to do that when I was a kid. You think it's just like, well, we don't want to have kids having fun around here. That's not the purpose of Wit's End.
Absolutely not. We just have to send them on traumatizing time travel adventures back to literally the death of Christ.
Connie's like, this is weird, Whit. Should I call the police? He's like, no, not yet.
We do not bring the police into Wit's End.
That's right.
No police.
What's really crazy is that Whit understands that you should never talk to the police.
Yeah.
But yes, Kent goes on, claims that his parents died there when he was living there as a child. This guy, Kent, the 28-year-old mystery man.
Hey,
the Duke of Kent, yes.
And Whit's like, no, that's not possible. You know, the deed to the place proves couldn't have lived there at the time, but this is weird. So he goes off and talks to Dale, who we'll remember is the editor of the Odyssey newspaper.
After you called, I had our intern go through the newspaper's archives to see if we had any articles about a Kent Wakefield. Lucy?
Yes, Mr. Jacobs. Hi, Mr. Whittaker.
Hi, Lucy. You're the intern?
Uh-huh.
The school has loaned her to us as part of her studies.
What?
What did you find out about Kent
The
Wakefield,
middle
Lucy?
school?
Yeah, it's a work-study
If you're
program.
Sure that's his name.
Loaned her?
That's what he told me.
Then I'm sorry, but I checked everywhere and couldn't find out anything about him.
Really?
That isn't to say he didn't live here, only that he didn't make it into the newspaper.
It's like an old Hollywood studio contract. Oh, yeah, Shirley Temple is on loan from MGM.
I was going to say, she still has 2 remaining years of team control, and then she's got an arbitration option in the 3rd one.
It's so clutch. I don't know if you guys are watching the NFL playoffs, but what I'm learning from them is it's so clutch to have a teen researcher on a rookie contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's really great.
Should just take a moment, by the way, to probably acknowledge Go Birds.
Go Birds, baby. Yeah, let's go. Super Bowl bound. Very, very exciting. Also, I finally got to watch a team have to use their emergency quarterback in a game, which is you wanted to see Christian McCaffrey play quarterback for some reason.
He's also on loan from a middle school.
He is, yeah. It's not the famous Christian McCaffrey. It's a 12-year-old. It's rough.
Right.
It was very unfair.
He got absolutely annihilated out there. It was
keep him in your prayers.
So it should also be mentioned that Dale Jacobs is, of course, voiced by Phil Lawler, who wrote the previous episode that we just listened to. And I think it's so funny how badly he wants to be a voice actor.
He's horrible at it. Like
he's so bad
at it.
It
was truly abysmal.
And the thing is, he gets work outside of Adventures in Odyssey.
Really?
Like, mostly because I think he taught radio production and media production at Azusa Pacific University, and some of his students have gone on and like worked on things and been like, hey, let's cast Phil Lawler.
That makes sense.
My dad always said, my father's an actor, for people who don't know me personally. Not you three, of course, but anyone else.
We knew that.
But a buddy of mine wanted to get into voice acting, and his whole thing, dad was like, yeah, that's a pretty incestuous world. Like, maybe you can put a tape together, but like, There's like 6 people who get work.
Right. Well, and all of them can do like a million voices, and that's kind of why. There's no articles that Dale has been able to find about Kent Wakefield, right? Whit can't find him in the Town Hall of Records, which is a thing that exists, apparently.
Yeah, I like that Whit also is just able to go straight to the police and is like, hey, give me your Kent Wakefield stuff. And they're like, sure, let's go look.
They got nothing else to do.
You have to give it to the warlord of the town.
The Khan of Odyssey.
Do you want your crops to fail? What's wrong with you?
Like, what's Whit's leverage here? How is it that he completely fucking owns the police, but he never gives them anything? What is
the thing, Josh? You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And no one teaches you kindness quite like our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Whit just goes in there and he flashes his fucking CIA badge. That's what happens.
Right.
Yeah. I also like to imagine that there were some cops that came to investigate some like noise disturbances at Whit's End, and they were just never seen again. So everyone just kind of has to be like, okay,
if you ever want to see them back, you're gonna have to dig up some files for me.
Walling up a part of his house. There's so many areas at Whit's End that people never see.
It's a fucking Resident Evil 7 situation. Like,
this is going to become a Resident Evil 7 situation.
It is.
So Whit speculates about the potential nature of what might be going on with this Kent guy.
You know, Whit, Kent could have Odyssey mistaken for somewhere else. Or he's well...
Out of his mind?
Yeah.
I've been wondering about that. But he was so sure of himself. He swears that Whit's End was his home. Oh, that's unsettling.
Unsettled these nuts.
But is it?
That's a good point, Josh.
Okay, so I think we haven't really talked about yet with this. The reason why this episode doesn't work for me is because I don't care. Like they've given me absolutely no reason to care about any of these people involved.
So Kent Wakefield coming in and doing his thing just wasn't compelling to you.
No,
in the way
because
a dead body in the basement was.
Yeah, dead body in the basement, great. Inherent mystery about that.
Yeah, I agree.
But like a 28-year-old wandering into a place going, golly gee willikers, this is just like my house. I'm like, okay, yeah, a lot of houses look like other houses, dude. Like there's no like inherent like what's going on? Like what crazy thing lies at the heart of this?
Well, that's also why then what they do next is they try to raise the stakes. Because,
I was going to say that exact same phrase.
Yeah. Because Connie picks up the phone and hears this.
Ooh.
Hello, it's Ann. Hello? Is anybody there? This is Whit's End.
Beware.
What? Hello?
Beware.
All right, who is this? Hello?
Coco beware.
Connie has not watched a lot like enough horror movies because like if I hear a single beware, I'm hanging up that phone and then I'm burning that phone.
Hey,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I don't go, what? Say that horrifying demon talk again.
The call is coming from inside Whit's End.
He hits him with the who is this?
Yeah.
Hey, AJ, what do you think burning the phone would accomplish?
The demon that's inside of it.
Inside of the phone.
Yeah.
Inside of the phone, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In case it's like a haunted phone situation.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never
like a
know.
phantom
It's
toll
like
booth.
it's not a cell phone. This is a landline.
Phantom
There's
toll
multiple
booth?
phones that all connect.
Also
in the
one of my
same
favorite
house.
Def Cabbage for Cutie albums. So
But who was haunted phone?
Okay, I'm ruling again. It's not a thing anymore.
There we fucking go.
Gotta circle back. Gotta circle back.
You
You'll
fucked it,
see.
AJ.
So my thought
I'll have my revenge.
my thought here was this to me then, now this is suddenly a Nancy Drew mystery, right? Like it's kind of got that vibe to it now.
Totally.
There's like
Another
there's somebody
video game.
who is being moderately menaced in a somewhat unclear way. The thing about the Nancy Drew games though is that, and the books as well, but you know, the games are particularly relevant in our conversation, is that Nancy will always, the inciting thing, sort of like what you were saying, AJ, is something that is really crazy or really inexplicable. Like somebody sees a ghost or there's a dead body or whatever. Whereas I think you're right that there's a guy who thinks this might be his childhood home is just like that's not anything.
No. And I think there's actually a very interesting fix you could do for this. Put the phone call first.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then when the guy wanders in, it's like already Connie's like, there's something real. I was told to beware. And then this kid
Who's
wanders
this guy?
in.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I feel like the guy who doesn't know if it's Whit's End or not is really sort of like, it feels like that was the first thing they came up with where like they're just like, okay, what if
Right.
someone went to Wit's End and said, this is my house, and Wit was like, no one ever lived here before, and then you have to figure it out. Like
Right.
I think that's the first thing, but then realizing
no
like,
second drafts.
yeah,
here.
like how do we
First draft, worst draft.
like how do we resolve this? Like how do we resolve Wit not knowing anything about Wit's End, or this guy not knowing about Wit? And it's like,
Right.
yeah, like the only way you resolve it is by making it way more complicated.
Well, and that's exactly what happens next. You know, there's so much more that Wit then has to do. And Lucy, the cub reporter, tags along with him. He goes to the police. Like we said, they have apparently dialed the police in Pittsburgh and confirmed that there is a guy named Kent Wakefield in Pittsburgh. So that's a thing. And then it's off to the library to get the historical blueprints of Wit's End. They get intercepted there by another guy, a guy named James Wakefield, who claims that he's Kent's uncle. But then Wit talks to him and he has a slightly different story to tell.
Yeah.
Are you the uncle who took Kent to Pittsburgh after his parents died?
He told you about that?
Oh, only a little.
You should know that I'm not his real uncle. I adopted him.
So, his real name isn't Wakefield?
No.
Do you know what it is?
No. At first, the agency said they
No.
wouldn't divulge the information. They operate on the basis of anonymity or something like that. Later, I made a more diligent effort to find out about Kent's history, but by that time, his records had disappeared. Some clerical error, I would imagine.
They make a point of putting James Wakefield in an electric wheelchair, so that's you can hear that hum as they're walking around in the library or city hall or wherever they are.
Yes.
This is played by Herb Ellis. Herb Ellis was an old-time radio drama guy. He worked with Jack Webb all the time.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
For those who don't know who Jack Webb is, he's the Dragnet guy. He's the
Those who don't know
original
who Jack
Dick
Webb
Wolf.
is, shut up. Get out of here.
Jack Webb sounds like an alias that Spider-Man comes up with, like on the fly.
Yeah, it does.
So he created Dragnet. He created like dramas about, DAs and things like that, just like Dick Wolf does now. And Herb Ellis is actually partly responsible for the existence of Dragnet in the first place in the early 50s. So
cool.
I'm sure he was a big get for the Odyssey guys. I'm sure they were very excited.
Well,
to have him on.
it seems like they wanted to get Vincent Price but couldn't. Like,
Yeah.
They just wanted to. Well, good luck.
The offer was out. He never got back to them.
I hope you'll find him soon. I hope perhaps he'll show up soon. It's like, I wish we got Vince.
We definitely do have a little bit of a sense of an unreliable narrator here. Like, it's hard to tell what's real and what's not.
Because he's his fake adoptive uncle.
Right.
Yeah, question. How do you adopt a nephew?
Very carefully. So
You want to become an uncle? It's not hard.
Kent's counselors, his psychologists, I should say, suspect that his parents died in a terrible fire of some sort. They believe Kent barely escaped with his own life.
Oh, no.
Yes. We believe it happened
Oh,
when
God.
he was
Oh,
around
man.
3 years old.
I love this very sudden music sting there.
Yep.
Yep, his parents died in a fire.
I did briefly think that they died in the fire that burned down the church of Wit's End, and I think that's kind of what's implied, but that would make him like 81 years old
Right.
and like a mythical, like immortal figure. And I'm like, okay, so this is gonna be like a Lazarus thing, but no.
we are led to believe that, Kent is just insane. Like, this doesn't add up.
Yeah,
Kent's insane.
and they say that explicitly. Kent's whole thing is that he is completely insane.
He goes apparently around to different towns where he just imagines, well, maybe my parents died here. And then he fills in the empty space in his memories with imagined details. That is the story. And so Wit basically buys it. He returns to Wit's End. Connie fills him in about the weird phone calls. And Lucy then returns to Wit's End with copies of the plans, the blueprints, which Wit peruses.
Here's the design for the house. It was done by Lyle Architects. There's the servant's stairwell to the second floor hallway, and the old corner fireplace, and hey, wait a minute.
What's wrong?
Well, there's a note from the architect here on the bottom.
So?
So, it says from the Tate House.
Tate House.
Oh.
Yes, the Tate House. Boy, I had to dig back for this one.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lyle.
As you know, Wit's End has been through a number of transformations. It was built on the site of the town church after the main sanctuary burned down, around the turn of the century.
Yes, the church tower is still there.
Right. The city commissioned my grandfather to design the building. According to these notes, the city elders asked him to make it look more like a house than a building because of where it sits.
Because it's in McAllister Park?
Yeah, they thought a house would look better than an institutional building in such a beautiful setting. Well, my grandfather did such a good job that it actually was used as a house before they turned it into the recreation center.
AJ, you're not following through.
4 years, it was the mayor's house.
You need to know this, AJ. I'm giving you the vegetables that you need to understand the lore as we go back to Blackguard's return.
Eat your fucking vegetables, AJ.
Countdown to the Devious Dutchman.
First of all, he shouldn't be talking because Lyle Crocodile can only sing in the voice of Shawn Mendes. He
We're not
can't
doing
not
this. No,
speak
we're not talking
to
about the
other
fucking-
people. And second of all, why we spend so much time in this episode on fucking nouns and about places that I don't care about, and it just compounds.
It's intrigue, AJ.
It's like you don't care about the Tates at all.
Yeah,
and the
I care about them. Sharon Tate, her house. We all remember, of course, that the Manson killings. We remember what happened at the Tate
And you know
house.
what? I think I speak for all of us when I say justice for Roman Polanski.
Absolutely.
You have tried to cancel me twice in 2 days, Trevor. No.
Justice to all of these Tate victims. Sharon Tate, her husband Roman Polanski, Andrew Tate. Everyone has been targeted by the Matrix. So the thing that's really great about that clip too is like we've had one of these before, but it's like this little smash cut that happens in the middle of the scene, and McCusker's like, yeah, we're just going with it. Like Whit is talking about this guy and then talking to this guy, and we're going. It is nothing like that Lawler shit.
Yeah, I was texting you about this, Brian, that like one thing that I always come back to is I hate it when children's media assumes that kids can't keep up with more advanced narrative techniques. And this just works. The show continues as it grows to find these more and more sophisticated sort of narrative ways of telling the story. And is it in service of anything particularly great in this episode?
Yes.
No, but it's worth noting.
Well, Brian, your lanyard is glowing now?
We learn from this that the Tate house is an important place for reasons. And
do we want to know why it's important?
I was just going to explain it. I don't think we need the whole clip, do we?
You don't need Lucy to tell you that it's a house identical to Wits End that was built on the edge of town.
Right.
They're two houses with the same blueprint.
Yep. And
surprise.
One of them was built by Thaddeus Tate, a railroad baron, and that house burned down.
Six Semper railroad barons.
That's right.
Yeah, we don't even know what happened to the Tates because that's not who was living there, because it was the Wakefields or whatever their real name was.
Charles
Wakefield's
Manson
not his
killed
real
them.
name.
That's what happened.
He has an adopted uncle.
Charles Manson wasn't involved. It was actually, he was back home. He was an instigator.
I wonder if that was just like dancing in McCusker's head. Like, what's a house? What's a name for a house where bad stuff
I'm
happens?
sure that's what it was.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm sure he wasn't even thinking consciously about it. Like, it just happened that way.
Yeah.
So Lucy and who is it? Oh, I'm about to play the clip, but I can't remember. They go to it's Whit. Yeah. Lucy and Whit. I know what happens.
That guy.
They go to the Tate house.
The charred walls, fallen beams. It's creepy.
Creepy, yes, but even more puzzling.
Why?
Well, because of Kent. You know, considering his uncle says he's crazy, everything he's told us is proven to be true.
What was that?
I don't know. The wind, I hope. Maybe we should leave.
Good idea.
I'm coming.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, a lot of shouts happening.
It was weird how all of those shouts happened at the same time in the episode that we listened to.
What a great depiction of mental illness and disability in this episode.
Yeah,
Master class of all.
I can't wait to get to that when we get back from the break.
Guess what, folks? That is the disability, especially, is part of the roadmap to the return of Regis Blackguard. You will hear a lot about disability in this year.
Okay.
Yes.
I was very surprised that none of you brought up the incredible line. That's what I meant when I said Kent goes crazy. He is crazy.
yes, that's right.
Mentally insane.
Because what happens as Whit and Lucy are going over to the house is that Kent goes back into Wit's End while it's still open, goes into the train room, becomes utterly train pilled and starts freaking out all the kids. Like he's presumably standing there just like shaking and staring at trains. Connie has to go intercept him. He like grabs her really, really hard.
Yeah, and I remember now I didn't clip the scene because it was just really long, and it's just a lot of like, I used to live here. I used to live here. My uncle, he doesn't believe me.
Mr.
You
Wakefield,
believe
you're hurting
me, don't you? Yeah, exactly. You must believe me. No, Wakefield. The trains, you're making them go too fast. You're hurting them.
With a man in the White House.
I was more concerned, honestly, about, was he hurting Connie? Maybe a little bit, but he was definitely hurting the trains. That was.
Oh, yeah, they were going way too fast. And also, Brian, that was a much more believable performance than what we got in the actual episode.
That's because I'm actually insane.
But Kent Wakefield is like, the guy who plays him is not giving a very good performance.
That was like one of his very first jobs ever. He's mostly an editor. Yeah, Kent does his train menacing. I did want to bring up the fact that this child walks up to Connie and is like, hey, there's something going on in the train room. And Connie goes, what is it, scrub? That is a child's name in Adventures in Odyssey.
What?
He appeared once before this. He is Rodney Rathbone's cousin. He is played by Dave Arnold's son, Landon. He is not important at all. And this episode is like, oh yeah, you all know Scrub.
You know his friend. You love him. It's Scrub.
I love that in the Adventures in Odyssey universe, all of the characters from Midsummer Night's Dream and the forest just live there. How you doing there, Peas Blossom?
The big reason that they had to eliminate Scrub is that nobody wanted him. They wanted none of him whatsoever.
He thought he was Fly.
Turns out, not so much.
And the worst thing is, like, the name is a reference. And you know what it's a reference to?
Bill Lawrence?
The Voyage of the Dawn Treader and the Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis. Eustace Scrub.
Oh, God.
So Scrub went through the no-no door and found himself in Narnia.
I guess.
The ultimate consequence.
So
it's Tumnus for you.
Let's get back to the spooky house. After we hear that, something breaks and falls.
This is the start of the holiday season, not the arguing season.
Arrivederci, amigos.
That's all the scary voices in the house.
Pretty
there
scary.
You go, Josh.
Those scary voices. The funny thing is that, like, the assemblage of voices there was that good? Not exactly, but like it would have been more interesting than somebody just being like,
Why did I ever want to do this?
So, just to be very clear, this is my final episode of the worst of all possible worlds. It's been great getting to know all of you, dear listeners, over the course of the past couple of years, but no, something breaks and falls on Whit, right?
He falls through a hole, I thought.
Does he fall?
It's like a beam falls.
It's like something.
A thing kind of taps him as we learn.
It gives him a little love tap on the head, and that's the end of part 1 of The Mysterious Stranger.
Where Whit almost dies. Let's not forget that this is described as Whit almost dying about 30 times.
Almost
Fingers crossed.
fucking dies.
Every time I'm just like, let this be the time. Let it finally kill him.
No, he's unkillable.
It's coming, AJ. It's coming.
We now have
I'm coming.
heard all of the exciting stakes here. We've set up the great mystery. How will this mystery be resolved? Well, you'll just have to wait until after this to find out.
Well, salutations, listeners. Lord Ligorium here, owner and proprietor of Lord Ligorium's Pop Organ Emporium. Friends, do you like music? Do you like pianos? Do you like pianos but wish it were like there were 3 of those? Then come on down to Lord Ligorium's Pipe Organ Emporium, located on Odyssey's main street between Clemens Cameras and that one old shop we thought was filled with witches. Turns out it was a Michael's. Our organs will blow you away with our low prices and delivery men what can get your fancy new organ to the top of a dang tower. We have lost so many men to towers. So pop into Lord Ligorium's Pop Organ Emporium today and tell me, Lord Ligorium, that Lord Ligorium, that's me, sent ya, as I am currently the only retail employee. Sorry, folks. There seems to be somebody making a ruckus in the back room. And considering there's no way into that back room other than through this here door, I'm gonna go ahead and assume it's witches. Just gonna grab my trusty witch bonking bat and... My God! A monster! No. Wait. You ain't a monster. I see... faces? So many faces. In pain. Great pain. You like music? Well, go on, keep playing. It sounded lovely. Don't be shy, come on. Oh yeah, I think I know this one. Ransom notes keep falling out your mouth. Mid-sweet talk, newspaper word cutouts. Speak no feeling, no, I don't believe you. You don't care a bit, you don't care a bit. Come on! Ransom notes keep falling out your mouth. Mid-sweet talk, newspaper word cutouts. Speak no feeling, no, I don't believe you. You don't care a bit, you don't care a bit. Oh no, you don't care a bit. Oh no, you don't care a bit. 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 Oh, you poor thing. You poor thing. Well, what's your name? Do you have a name?
Many names. Horace, Grover, Jimmy, Spencer.
Well, that's a heck of a lot of names. But what should I call you? Do you have a favorite name?
Jerry Whittaker.
Well, Jerry Whittaker, I reckon this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. One more time from the top.
This is a sports podcast now.
Oh, God.
Excellent.
So this is Brian and I's last days. We are resigning from the worst of all possible worlds.
That guy hit the home run like he was going...
I mean, it do be like that, though, sometimes.
You got it. You did it.
Yeah.
That's actually the sound of Pete Alonso hitting a home run.
It kind of is. He's a big, goofy Italian. It's nice.
I'm a big, goofy Italian.
That's
You're
true.
a small, goofy Italian.
Hoisted by my own petard.
So we're back.
You are roughly petard shaped.
We're back.
Yeah.
We are continuing now on part 2 of The Mysterious Stranger.
Yeah.
It opens with Whit being like, I'm okay.
I guess they were like, the dead body one, he does get like a concussion. And so like, we can't just keep giving Whit a concussion.
Right.
So it's just like the episode starts. They're like, oh no, Whit. And he's like, I'm fine.
Yep.
Yeah, don't worry. That could have been bad, but it wasn't.
This leads us then into an immediate confrontation with some fucking lady.
What do you want?
My name's John Whittaker, and
I don't care who you are. What are you doing on this property? You're trespassing.
Well, I'm sorry. We didn't see any signs.
You need a sign to tell you not to come into a burned-out wreck? Are you fools?
I'm sorry. You're right. We shouldn't have come in. I very nearly got myself killed by...
I can see what happened. I'm not blind.
Excuse me for asking, but who are you?
The name's Ullman, and I'm the caretaker of this property.
Tracy
Ullman.
playing herself.
This is the grandmother of The Simpsons here.
Yep.
Tracy Ullman and I host this late night show. Now get off my haunted set.
I love.
That's right, boy.
Wow, that's a really good old Homer. I love that he says, "My name is John Avery Whittaker," and she says, "I don't care," and I was like, "Yes,
finally!"
She lives in Odyssey, and she's like, "I don't know who you are. I don't fucking care. Get out."
I like that there's just a cabin that's right next to a burned out husk of a home, and the home's never been bulldozed or like nothing's ever been built on its spot.
It's just sitting there.
It reminds me of like in Red Dead Redemption 2 where you ride past that barn that's just like dilapidated and falling apart. Like that's the kind of Odyssey that like we're living in, right?
Yep.
Because it is simultaneously a very bustling small town and also in the middle of goddamn nowhere.
Yeah. Actually, Marston built the Tate House.
Is that right? That's canon.
I gotta raise the wall. I can't do Marston. I still can't do Marston.
That's a good Marston. I think you're doing just fine, AJ.
They return then after meeting Tracy Ullman. They return back to Wit's End. And the police are there.
Yeah. Oh, he is so mad.
Wit's furious that Connie called the cops.
Is everybody all right? You guys will never guess what happened.
You're right. What is all this?
Well, Kent Wakefield was here and he was acting really strange. And he grabbed me by the arm and I have a bruise, see?
You called the police because of a bruise?
No, not exactly. I screamed and Scrub called the police.
There's Scrub.
Scrub, who we all know.
Scrub seems like a good person. Like Scrub's
no, Scrub is just fine. He's kind of weird, but like, yeah, he's a good kid.
Yeah, he can't do this all on his own.
Right.
He's no Superman.
Right.
I'm there with you.
I got it.
Don't fucking call the cops to Wit's End.
Oh my God.
Don't do it.
The
Never
heat
once.
he brings with her. Oh, I bet something bad has to have happened. You wouldn't have called the cops otherwise. You know how I am about them.
Oh, a little bruise?
Just
I'll give you something to cry about.
Incredible abuser energy. Like, just like.
She's a fucking 16-year-old attacked by an almost 30-year-old.
Oh, it's
like,
just a bruise.
I wouldn't.
James Wakefield shows up and is like, Kent's sick. Oh, no. But he tips his hand a little bit. He says, oh, Whit, you almost got killed out there. Well, how would he know? How would he know where Whit was?
Now, this is like the exact same tell that they had in the episode where the guy was like dead in the basement. Where like they just had some person involved who was like, just like when you did this 3 hours ago and no one else was there, except for the mysterious shadowy figure that attacked
that's
you.
That's such a classic, though. It's the classic of like, me saying like, well, I wasn't the one who stabbed him. And the cop being like, that's interesting. Who said he got stabbed?
So Whit goes back to Dale. Dale does another dig. We get some information here that, again, is just kind of confusing about that there was a mom who died of smoke inhalation. The son got moved to a foster home. Nobody knows where the dad, Stephen, ended up. So the mystery expands. Aren't we excited?
Stephen just left the hospital. And even Whit's like, now hang on. How many clerical errors could possibly exist in this case?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Once they like find the real name and it's Anderson. That's Kent. He's Kenneth Anderson and his parents. Like they find
Mr.
all of these
Anderson.
places that should have documents, and it's like it's half there. Like someone has physically gone in and pulled papers out of the filing cabinet.
Which wasn't
and
that
left.
also a thing in another Odyssey episode
Probably,
of like missing
yeah.
documents?
No,
And we go back to the
fairness, I mean,
microfiche.
No, you know what it is? I'm thinking of This Present Darkness, where remember
the film and the
all of the fucking documents went missing. This is such a trope.
It's a trope, though. I mean, there's like that's kind of to be expected, where it's like, amnesia or like the femme fatale or what, like that's radio. Like that makes sense to me. Yeah. But some of the stuff is like the more sort of like kind of capricious or ornate stuff is where I lose it, where it's like, like after that lady was mean to him and Lucy just goes, I see friendliness isn't a big selling point around here. Which just goes, yeah. Okay, chill. Everyone calm down.
Yeah, I think I've sort of pinpointed like what my problem is with these with this two-parter, and it's that it's just nothing but codes and keys. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like if you're in a video game, usually there's like sort of like there's like lore and context, but all this thing is just another plot thing to get you to the next plot thing, but it doesn't ever take time to like extrapolate like what are these people feeling, or like what how is this affecting this poor kid who doesn't even know where he is at any given time? He's almost like an afterthought, so he can explain this like incredibly like almost Resident Evil 7, as you said earlier, like convoluted family.
Yes.
That it's too much to pack into this two-parter.
But no one has
it's
inferiority except Whit.
Right.
Like in any episode, like no one is given interior. Even Eugene doesn't
in
have.
these episodes, there are other episodes of the shows where characters do have like actual motivations and reasons for being. It's just that in these particular episodes, in order for things to happen, he packs it with so much plot. And like you said, AJ, he doesn't leave room for you to care. And to pull it back to the Nancy Drew Adventures, the video game specifically, which again, I think this is kind of in that world.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that makes those games so fun is the fact that all of the characters are a little off. They're a little quirky. And so the whodunit, you want to know, and it could be any of them. It could be all of them. You don't know.
Could you imagine Whit doing the Murder on the Orient Express?
Well, no. I don't think we have time for it in the lead up to the Return of the Devious Dutchman, but there is an episode where Eugene is accused of murder on a train.
Somebody does get thrown off a train. It's a whole situation.
Well,
it's Mama. Mama gets thrown from the train.
You know what, Eugene?
Let's do
I'm
that.
starting to think everyone on the train had a hand in this. What, Professor Whittaker? Just follow with me and see what happens.
Yep. Whit has an idea. Then he's like, all right, I'm going to go talk to the doctor. The doctor's going to tell me who did it and how.
Yeah, and so we see Doc Morton again, a completely one of the only recurring roles that never does fucking anything. She is a purely functionary role. It's just
Correct.
like, Whit's dying, I'm his doctor. Lucy's dying, I'm her doctor.
This is the first of two doctors in this episode, by the way. There's a lady doctor and a man doctor.
And we know who trust more, so.
That's right, Trevor. Absolutely.
Well, it was a big
Made
problem.
me
because,
raise one of my biases.
Having a lady doctor, I don't know. It was just like maybe they should have switched up the writer's room first. Like they were already running stale under Moffat's direction anyway.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Yes. So what we learned, we've got to get through this plot, guys.
I got you, Josh.
Oh, but why? Smoke inhalation is a thing. Steven,
Yes.
he still may be alive. He's got brain damage if he is alive.
Yeah.
Wow, crazy. Whit goes back off to drive somewhere else. Kent is in his car, and Whit's just kind of like,
Kent is in his backseat. He just pops up and he's like, I know where you should go. And Whit is not that surprised.
He's so
Lucy's
cavalier
in the
about
car
it.
with him.
Yes, there's a child in the car. This is an unstable 28-year-old man. Whit's like,
Who
well,
attacked his employee.
it is what it is.
Come on.
Let's drive out to the Tate house. And Kent immediately IDs the Tate house as his childhood home. But again, Mrs. Ullman is there.
I thought I told you to get off my property. I'll call the police. I will.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Ullman, but we had to...
Wait a minute. Mrs. Ullman? Yes, I know you.
I saw you on the TV.
That's impossible. You... No, it couldn't be. No. Go away. I'll call the police. Go away.
Which, since we know what the ending of this is, she should not be surprised to see Kent here.
Yeah.
She
Oh my
knows
God,
already.
that's right.
Right.
Yeah. I would like to take a brief moment to actually praise the music in this episode, in this two-parter. I think it's really, really lovely. Like, you know, you can play these songs with chords, but it's like it really strikes at your heart in like a very like visceral way. Like it's nothing too complex, but like it really unsettled me, actually. They had some like uncut gems level of like anxiety induced in my brain.
There's some good use of dissonance here.
It's a long, long way from the Castles and Cauldrons episode when we heard this.
Now, Trevor, which do you prefer is my question.
I gotta say, I sort of prefer Castles and Cauldrons.
That's what I thought.
It's a little bit, there's a little bit of that, why am I forgetting her name? Well, you know what, no, even a better one, it sort of sounds like Goblin, like the person, the band that did all the Dario Argento scores for like Suspiria and stuff. Sort of sounds like them, and I'm of course a big fan.
Yeah. John Campbell really moved away from his Wendy Carlos
That's what I was trying to think of. Wendy Carlos. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was thinking of like Wendy Carlos Williams, and I was like, that's not right.
I think that's probably the name of like an irony leftist Twitter account.
Sure it is.
Yeah, I'm like, my brain is doing something here, but it's not helping.
Kent recognizes Mrs. Ullman, and then they go off to a different doctor's place because we need another guy for some reason. Dr. Newcastle.
And this guy is something
Choices
else.
are being made.
Strong choices. Strong and wrong, as they say.
Yes, can I help you?
Dr. Newcastle?
Yes, that's me.
though I don't get called doctor much anymore. Retired a few years ago, you know.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm John Whittaker, and this is Lucy Schultz.
Uh-huh.
That is a right choice. I love that. So this is Jimmy Weldon. He's the voice of Solomon Grundy.
Born on a Monday?
Oh my gosh!
Yes,
no, you're right.
that's
Like,
right.
there's Solomon Grundy wants pants too.
Exactly. Yes. He's still alive, by the way. He is 99 years old. He's going to turn 100 this year.
Wow. That's crazy. But yes, the good Dr. Newcastle does not remember Steven Anderson, but he does remember the Tate fire. He remembers that the father suffered a great deal of smoke inhalation damage. The files at the hospital are gone, but Dr. Newcastle still has the journals. And so he goes back to his journals.
Doctrine journals.
Yeah, he goes back to the old doctrine journals.
I've done some medical examinations, I have.
And we get some more details about the case from these journals.
Well, according to your journal, you met Steven Anderson's brother-in-law.
That's right. I remember now. He came in several times to talk about Steven. At first, I didn't get his name. Real mysterious fella.
Ooh.
I remember thinking he was very wealthy. Of course, he'd have to be to take care of Steven back at the house.
Which house?
It's right in there, isn't it? They moved him back to Tate Lodge.
You mean house, don't you? Tate House?
Nope. Don't be silly, girl. The Tate house burned down years ago.
So
this is the second location.
You fucking idiot.
You fool. So there's a cabin next to the house. It also has its own name for some reason.
Yeah, you know, the Tate Lodge. Trevor, I feel like you were talking to me when we were messaging a little bit about just how much this show centers around berating children.
Oh my, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Like for the biggest criminal is Whit for like every time a child is in danger, him being like, well, there's no reason to get upset about it. I was tied up in an attic for 3 hours. That doesn't sound like all this.
It's not enough for the police.
But yeah, no, it's like it's fantastic. And like it also reminds me of that of the Simpsons joke where he's talking to there's a lot of this in the Simpsons and I don't really know why.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It reminds me of the Hank Scorpio joke where he's talking to Homer and Homer asks him where he can get a hammock.
Homer, there's 4 places. There's the hammock hut. That's on 3rd. There's Hammocks R Us. That's on 3rd, too. You got Put Your Butt There. That's on 3rd.
Yeah.
Swing Low, Sweet Chariot.
Right.
Matter of fact, they're all in the same complex. It's the Hammock Complex down on 3rd.
Oh, the Hammock District.
That's right.
it's like that, but like with houses. Like You mean Tate House? No, I mean Tate Lodge.
Right.
I just want to go to the whole Taint District. I think I accidentally said Taint District, and I deeply apologize,
That's all right.
Brian.
So yes, what we come to learn is that James Wakefield is actually the wheelchair guy we met before.
Which, again, they could have dug through the records and found that his mother's maiden name was Wakefield.
There's so many
and then
ways
been
they
like,
could have done
oh,
it.
yeah,
Look,
obviously.
This whole plot unravels with a photo album.
Correct.
Like with the photo album, it's like it's gone immediately.
So ultimately, though, the thing is, James is Kent's real uncle. He's not his uncle for fake. He's his uncle for real. And this matters
changes nothing.
because of reasons.
Well, no, it's the will. The will is important then, because if he were some sort of false uncle, he couldn't get the money.
That's right. We hate a fake uncle.
False
a funkle, if you will.
The funniest thing you can do is say false instead of fake, I found.
False uncle. But yes, Dale shows
How dare
up.
thou, false uncle.
You are the true
Cast
uncle.
your eye upon the Danish throne.
Dale shows up with his latest research. You know, there's a family fortune. There's some shit with the will. None of this really matters except to establish that, like, the only thing that this establishes is that Uncle James has a vested reason to keep Kent from finding out that his dad is still alive. And so once Kent shows up at Tate Lodge, we get this incredible confrontation between Kent and his Uncle James.
I wish you salesmen would quit bothering me.
No, don't close the door.
That's right, Mrs. Ullman. Don't close the door. Let him in.
Don't do it.
Let him in.
Uncle James, what are you doing here?
I should ask you the same question.
This is so camp.
You were a bad boy to run away from me again.
I know. I'm sorry. What in the world is that?
That's our own Stephen. Stephen, come in.
No, Mr. Wakefield, don't get him involved.
Don't be ridiculous. He's already involved. Stephen! Stephen!
No.
So Steven is ambulatory?
I don't like
He's
this
into
first
the
draft
room?
of Young Frankenstein. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, and you know what? There are 2 doctors in this.
Yep.
And 1 Frankenstein.
God.
And 2 Tate buildings, but one is also not. There's 3 really, but this is so gothic. Like this is so fucking like Paul McCusker is like, I really want to write a horror story. I really want to be Edgar Allan McPoe.
Well, and the tone shifts so fucking quickly. This comes out of nowhere.
Insane.
Once again, I'm going to say they wanted Vincent Price for this role and couldn't get it.
Yes, for sure.
Or they felt uncomfortable that he was bi. And we're just like,
It might have been that.
We can't have a bi man on this show.
I did mention this to you, though, that Hal Smith, who played Toad, and Will Ryan, who played Frog.
Did they play?
And those are 2 canonically gay characters.
Did they play Frog and Toad in the animated?
They did.
Oh,
that's lovely.
That's Hal Smith and Will Ryan. Yeah.
More like Will Bryan.
You know, it is more like that.
And more like Hal Switch.
Let's go. So Steven grabs Kent. And there's this whole thing where James is like, well, we're going to have to give you a sedative. And like, it just becomes incredibly gothic and violent for like a minute.
It's very fun.
James has like a villain monologue. You know, we have to get rid of him, but Whit shows up at just the right time. You know, you're busted, fucko. It's over. and then back at Whit's End, Whit sort of wraps up the story, connects a whole bunch of plot beats that didn't need to be connected.
There's still like 7 minutes left in the episode, and it's just to do the psycho explain everything scene.
Doesn't need to be in here. Doesn't matter. Doesn't fucking matter.
It's like, we get it. It's all about inheritance. Cool.
I'm glad I'm glad Lucy was there to be a journalist to ask every obvious question. Just
I will say this though, a thing that I loved is they're like, well, how will Kent ever get back to normal? Because you know, there's 2 kinds of people. There's people with brains that are normal and people with brains that are abnormal.
And people with brains that are abnormal cannot live in Odyssey.
That's right. And it's only by the grace of God. Only by the grace of God could he ever return to being normal.
I do like that it's like, after this like lifetime of being like isolated and abused by this parent, it's okay. We're going to give him a few rounds of therapy from a good Christian therapist like James Dobson, and then he'll be fixed.
No. We're gonna send him up to a cave, and we're gonna have green acid shot at his face.
And give him a present though. That's gonna be the moment he changes. I do like this is the one time they bring back in religion. Like they're just like, we forgot to do this.
That happens with a lot of
Focus on the family is gonna break our legs if we don't.
It's usually Chris's job at the end to be like, the Bible says.
Which she also does here. She's
Don't
like,
trust guys in wheelchairs.
The poison of greed will take its toll, and the truth will be found out. Bye.
It's greed again, baby.
I like her ominous warning that no matter how long you go without unraveling, eventually it's like, geez, like, are you threatening me, Chris?
A lot of shit about disability and like the way that it's treated here, whether it's physical disability in the case of the character of James in his wheelchair, or mental disability in the case of Kent.
Well, I mean, some of it just seems like, obviously Paul McCusker doesn't really understand the nuances of mental health and mental illness, and he doesn't want to write that kind of story. He wants to write a story about a madman, a crazy guy, as just like, that's just how these stories work. Which is, it's strange, right? Like, James Dobson was a clinical child psychologist, psychiatrist. He saw all kinds of extreme cases, and yet there is this disdain for psychiatry and psychology as a discipline in evangelical culture, in Focus on the Family. Regis Blackard is himself a child psychologist in the series. And I've talked about this before, how they talk about like, it's just such a godless field. It's such a godless field because psychology tries to, I guess, explain religion or whatever, which Freud did, sure, but not really, not these days.
It seems as though Dobson is like going for vengeance here, right? Like there is sort of like
personal beef.
They rejected me, so I'm gonna reject them. That'll show them.
Yeah.
And it really comes out. I hate that we have these mentally ill characters, and also this character that's in a wheelchair that are just automatically the villains because that's.
Oh yeah, you should have known they were different.
Right. You should have known.
I found the whole Stephen thing really weird. Like it actually helps to hear you say that it's like a Gothic novel, because that actually kind of contextualizes it a bit for me in like a tradition, because it does, like, I'm thinking about how they would have like handled the monk or something like that, and it's making me laugh a lot, a la thinking about Wit doing Orient Express. But like it is funny because like it really is that like Mad Woman in the Attic thing where it's like, oh, guess who we have in the basement? It's your disabled father.
Right,
right.
And
like Lucy at the end being like, do you think he really knows you? And he's like, on my best days I do. It's like, geez, like you don't really have to go about it this way. It is like, but of course, like it within the logic of the show, it totally makes sense. Like Wit is, if nothing else, a very positivist person, and like Wit's End thrives on obvious and like clear answers, sometimes metaphorical, but always like fairly understandable metaphors. Like, well, what could truth eternal be? Well, it's the Bible.
And a big thing, like they have to, at the end, they have to pretend to be sympathetic towards this character who only exists as a device.
Yes.
Right.
And that's all any mentally ill character is ever going to exist as.
Oh, and it's openly a device.
He doesn't come back. We don't learn about him. We don't follow him. Just like the girl with the eating disorder that was in another episode we covered. Yeah. There's no continuing on that like path towards wholeness or towards just continuing to be alive in this new circumstance.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also the implication that as long as you are a good Christian, this sort of thing won't happen to you.
Oh, 100%.
This is the sort of thing that happens to other people.
Someone else.
As long as you are, walking with the Lord and living uprightly, you're not going to experience something like, a horrible debilitating house fire that leaves your kid mentally anguished, and it's just like, no, man, like these things just happen.
Well, but like, I mean, even going back to like mental health, like you can look at how Robin handled the greed thing earlier on when like she was thinking, she was like, oh God, I'm hungry for money. And she said, I'll pray about it. And which like in and of itself, like fine. That's, but like her prayer is like, God, I hate these thoughts. Please let me have better. Please let me have good thoughts instead. And it's like, it's such a weird understanding of such a weird understanding of how intrusive thoughts work. Like you can't just say like, God, take these away. And it's just like, oh, sure thing. Like full service God over here. Happy to do it.
Yeah. Like literally we hear that sound effect of like, as if God is just like, no greed for you. There's just no follow through too. That's the thing that I find in a lot of these stories is that it also kind of in the narrative, I'm thinking a lot about like how it's just like, well, you can't have an abortion, but also we're not going to give you any child care.
Right.
It's just like there's no actual helping of the people.
Yeah, we never see. Yeah, after Pamela has her problem, do we see Pamela and her child, or do they recur? No, Scrub reoccurs. We get to see more of Scrub.
Right. And again, just to be very clear, I want none of him.
No, I want more Scrub. I want more Scrub. Scrub is a guy that can get some love from me.
Doesn't he come back as Busta?
I mean, he's also known as that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. In case you haven't had enough fun enjoying these fables of greed, we're going to get something even more explicitly about greed here. This is the Cross of Cortes.
That's right. We're taking a trip south of the border.
The gang performs a colonialism.
These episodes are numbers 171 and 172.
So we're jumping back in time. We're in 1991 now. It's about a year after the Attic thing, the Treasure of LaMonde. And this is once again Phil Lawler. I'm sorry, AJ.
And
I'm so mad.
This is, of course, not good. These episodes are not good. I was I know please recover.
No. Brian, thank you for today. Really. Thank you for today.
This the titular cross of Cortes here is lifted directly from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, this is not a real artifact.
No.
This is a thing that was made up for the opening of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade with the young Indy stuff.
Don't they explicitly reference like the Spear of Destiny that Hitler had in this episode? Like, aren't they like, it's a lot like the Spear of Destiny? The thing that made DC Comics characters not able to fight Hitler. Sure, yeah, that thing.
Apparently, the Cross of Coronado, which is its analog in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, was originally in the original script called the Cross of Cortes. Like that's how fucking explicit that's it. They literally just lifted it out and dropped it into the thing. So this episode begins with Eugene giving us an overview, some exposition.
Yeah, this has a cold open, and there are some episodes that open and don't have the theme song. This is an actual cold open that leads to the theme song. I don't know how many other episodes actually do that.
Yeah, Whit has been talking about going to Central America, and he gets this package. That's kind of the big incident here.
Now, who do I know in Mexico?
More to the point, Mr. Whittaker, who do you know in Mexico who would stay in the Huevos Rancheros Hotel, room 117?
The Huevos Rancheros Hotel.
Room number. The sender's initials, perhaps?
Initials? No, it couldn't be.
Couldn't be who?
It is. It's from Dan Ysidro.
Oh, your missionary friend.
So, Dan Ysidro appeared once before in this series. There was like a charity thing that the church was doing to support him down in Nicaragua. And Jimmy was like, why do I need to go to these charity things that support all these stupid missionaries? And then he goes home and has a terrible nightmare where he is down in Nicaragua with Dan Ysidro and he is attacked by militias. I didn't include that episode. You're welcome, AJ. You don't know what I do for you here.
Thank you.
So Dan has appeared in the show as a dream.
Let's go, dude. But he's a corporeal being in this one. He's a missionary.
Yeah.
He's got a map that he has, I guess, sent Whit. And
why do people keep sending Whit like priceless artifacts through the mail?
Well, because if you can get them, if you get them to Whit, they're safe forever. No one would cross.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly
right.
But
why are they being sent to Whit's End? They made it very explicitly clear that all of his mail goes to his home.
That's a good question, AJ.
Once they're sent to Whit's End, they're under his power as like a dark lord. At his home, he has a bunch of his enemies could get to them. Which is why all of his catalogs and personal mail go there, but not his bills.
It is worth noting there are additional security measures at Whit's End that are not present in his own home. Like, for instance, the secret
computer.
sliding bookcase door that leads to Shodan. Things of that nature. But yes, Eugene's like, oh, this is Tenochtitlan. And the song Tenochtitlan revealed from Civilization 2 played in my head as I heard that. That's just for me. Whit figures out the map, though. He takes a look and he figures it mostly out.
What is it?
Some of my high school Spanish is coming back to me. You see this?
It looks like two volcanoes.
Read what's written across them.
Corazon del Diablo. Translated?
Heart of the Devil.
He knows that Eugene doesn't speak or understand Spanish, and yet he makes him read the Spanish.
Well, and Eugene pronounces it beautifully.
Easy Spanish.
No, I know, but like Whit could just have translated it immediately.
I also love the constant use of like first grade Spanish in this episode.
Oh,
so good.
Whit speaking Spanish is a hate crime.
Chris lets us know there's a break here, and Chris lets us know that we'll be back in uno momento, and she's like, that means a moment.
That's why
sounds like Dora the Explorer. Like,
this episode is a two-parter because they have to say everything twice. They have to say it in Spanish and then in English.
Right.
I found out with the previous Dan Ysidro episode, all of the Spanish in that was stuff that Paul McCusker sent up to the missions department of Focus on the Family so that they could do the translation of lines into Spanish.
Oh, let's fucking go, dude.
So Phil Lawler did that with this episode.
What a completely lazy move.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
That speaks to the level of integration that Focus on the Family has as an
vertically integrated
org.
corporation. I mean
Vertically
nonprofit
and
organization.
horizontally.
Well, okay, the weird thing about this is that I noticed there were a lot more ad breaks than normal. So we get our first ad break at like 4 minutes in, and then we get another one at 15 minutes in. And I don't know if that becomes like...
It's because they modeled
maybe
it
that
off
was something.
of like watching Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade on TV.
Eugene is so excited to go to Mexico, right? He gives us this monologue about how it's a study in contrasts.
It's a land of contrasts.
something about airplanes in
Cassie,
there too.
Cassie also was mad, but he's like, well, she should know it's my turn.
Yeah, Connie.
I'm never going to get Cassie. That right. Just
so, and Eugene's reference to it being his turn is because the first trip that Whit went on with an employee was with Eugene during the train thing where Eugene killed a guy. The second trip was when he went to Chicago with Connie, and that Austrian dude killed another guy.
And Connie almost died too. That was
that was a whole thing. A lot of guns. One of them was a water gun. So this episode is narrated by Eugene as well, in the same way that Harlow Doyle will narrate his episodes. Same actor, and they give him the same tics for no reason. Just that Phil Lawler doesn't trust himself as a writer, and he shouldn't.
Correct.
Yeah, fair enough.
We arrived in Mexico City that afternoon. The city was a mural of contrasts, at once fabulously rich and grindingly poor, hideously ugly and astonishingly beautiful. It was also very hot, which didn't change throughout our stay.
Whit then has a one-sided phone call with Dan, and Eugene's like, well, what's he doing? Well, turns out he's an archaeologist also?
Well, in addition to being a missionary, Eugene, Dan is also an archaeologist.
Great.
Really?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, then he must be on the trail of an important find, and the map is the key.
But if that's the case, then why would he send it to me in the United States?
An excellent question.
No, it's not. It's just like, so there's intrigue going on.
It's not.
The cops knock on the door.
Yep.
And Whit opens the door and it's like, oh, it's the cops.
Dan.
What would you want with Mr. Isidro, if I may ask?
We want to question him in connection with a robbery.
Robbery?
Grand theft, actually. He stole a very valuable historical artifact, a map.
Stolen?
That's impossible.
What makes you think so?
Danny Isidro's a missionary, one of the finest and most committed I've ever known.
Missionaries have never done anything wrong.
That's right. When the cop came in, he's like, do you know a Dan Isidro? And Whit's like, maybe. And Eugene's like, yes. And Whit's like, God damn it. You talk to the cops.
I like that the cop is also played by the assassin who tries to take out Grandpa Simpson. Del Monte.
Yes.
Enjoy them, all right. It will be your last.
I forgot what the name of the cop is. Is it Kitsugi? What is his name?
Kitsugi.
Kitsuragi.
Yeah,
I'm thinking Kitsuragi. I'm so sorry. Yeah, no. God. What is this guy's name?
Harrier Dubois. No, it's Cordova.
Yes.
And it turns out he's not a Mexican cop. He's a Nicaraguan cop who's just walking around with
who doesn't have
Nicaraguan
any
uniform.
jurisdiction.
Nicaragua is not one of the places that's the focus of the family likes, so it's okay that we steal from him.
Apparently, yeah.
And so we get here a little bit of context about the Cross of Cortes, what it is, why it's important.
Dan has been hiding outside the window, it turns out.
That's right.
Dan, why are the police chasing you?
The police aren't. Cordova is.
Oh.
He's not functioning in an official capacity. He's more of a competitor.
Then you are on the trail of an important find?
Oh, yes. Muy importante. The biggest of my career. Whit, I think I've discovered the hiding place of the Cross of Cortes.
Whoa! Whoa!
Yes.
Whoa! I'm coming.
Yeah. Congrats, dude.
I mean, he's an archaeologist. He's a missionary. Yucatan Jones, is this anything? Probably not.
No.
It is to me.
The Cross of Cortes is the MacGuffin, right? That's what we need to know. They've also got to like go between some volcanoes or some shit. They need to get an interpreter. Yeah. They find one. It's Mendoza, and she's a lady. A lady named Mendoza.
It's a treacherous place. Many people have gone in and not come out. But I believe these symbols will lead us in safely.
Well, now, if we can just find an interpreter, we'll be all set.
I'm way ahead of you, Whit. I've already contacted someone who can not only interpret the symbols, but guide us to the right place. Name's Mendoza.
Oh, well, when do we meet him?
Tomorrow at the bullfights. And Whit, Mendoza's not a him. It's a her.
What? Pronouns in bio.
What? Also, he says it's a her.
Yeah.
Which Mario?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's how Mario asks someone's gender. It's a her. It's a me.
I really feel that it's a her and he what are sort of like the two sides of the same coin. You know what I mean?
A her?
There we are.
Oh. So we got to go to a bullfight.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what's actually very funny about this is that now we're finally getting to the episodes that are explaining the cover art that is like burned into my Apple Music.
Oh, these
when I download these things, these
images.
terrible cover art. And yeah, so finally I know why Eugene. Well, we'll get there, but like Eugene has a little run-in with a bull. Spoilers for the bullfight.
Ooh.
Also, Mendoza's super. First of all, her name is Maria Mendoza.
Maria Mendoza.
Yeah, let's listen to a little bit of Mendoza when she meets Eugene.
Gentlemen, I think we have just made contact.
Mendoza.
Hello, Isidro. ¿Cómo está?
Bien, bien, ¿y tú?
Ay, así.
She's only doing okay.
These are my partners, John Whittaker and Eugene Meltzner.
How do you do?
Juan? Eugene.
That's Eugene.
Whatever.
She's
So there you go.
She's gonna fuck you.
Oversexed Latina femme fatale. You know, this is really good. Nothing racist about this.
No, nothing racist about.
No.
This episode racist, Josh? The one where they
not an episode where someone says the word chochin.
I love that they had to pass this script on to another department to get a CSC.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I hope that was an original. I hope that Como estás y tú así. You know, that again, I remember that from like fucking first grade. I don't know, man. I just
are these these are all white people voicing the Nicaraguans.
No, Cordova's the voice of Richard Maxwell, but actually Mendoza is played by Luisa Leschin.
Oh, okay. Do you know who she is? Does she have credits?
I looked her up. She's a really interesting person, actually. She was a ballerina. She went to school here in New York and became a ballerina in Switzerland.
Huh.
For years, came back to the U.S., was doing acting jobs, was cast as stereotypes all the time, you know, pregnant teen mothers and oversexed Latinas in Mexico with Eugene Meltzner, things like that. And so she got into writing. She was sick of that shit and founded Latins Anonymous, which ended up being a pretty big incubator for a lot of Latino writing talent in TV. She produces still a lot of TV. She was a producer on George Lopez, Everybody Hates Chris.
Oh, wow.
She still does acting. She did ADR just recently for Puss in Boots.
Ooh. It's a great movie, by the way. Puss in Boots' Last Wish.
Yeah.
So she, like, you know, this thing is just a single tiny blip in her life.
I also just regret that, like, this is the thing that we are remembering her for right now.
Yeah.
But at least we now know that she's a real person.
She did the work.
I can feed this other info to you, and it's like, she's responsible in part for Everybody Hates Chris, which is a fantastic show.
Yeah, Eugene fucks. Just, again, need to reestablish that Eugene fucks.
He does not.
We are going to learn this year that Eugene does in fact fuck. Eugene fucks, and Connie doesn't.
Yeah, I don't like all of these. I can't listen to these episodes. They're going to scare me too much.
And no, it's not Connie who he fucks. I want to be very clear about that.
No, he does not. No, never.
It's Whit.
It's Whit.
Oh no! Oh, there it is. Eugene gets very upset because they're going to kill the bull,
which he doesn't know for some reason. He doesn't know that you kill a bull at the end of a bullfight.
Who is a walking encyclopedia, has never heard of the fact that bullfights kill the bull, nor has he learned about Aztecs doing human sacrifice.
Oh, it must have been very difficult getting the animals up here. Who said anything about animals?
Nor does he know that bathroom in Spanish is baño. There's just like very
because he has to go to the bathroom because he's very nauseous.
There's this joke where somebody says aquí, meaning here, and he thinks it's a key.
Yeah,
and it's
I don't need
I don't want a key. I need El Baño. I'm not going to play that clip, but he gets...
Thank you for not playing that clip.
Yeah, this guy's like,
thank you.
La Puerta, right? So he goes behind him, and then you hear the guy like, don't mention it, man. He speaks English. Oh no. Why would a Mexican speak English? And then Eugene is locked in the bullpen.
Yep.
Yes, he is a bull now. And he is going to be killed by the matador, if I understand correctly.
That's the idea anyway. Yeah.
The running of the
Eugene has become the most dangerous game. Yeah, I mean, it's like this big moment of like, oh, do you want to play that one, Brian?
That's the cliffhanger we end on. And as we go into part 2, Eugene is in the bullpen.
Mr. Whittaker! Help! Eugene! Mr. Whittaker!
If there were only some way to distract him for a minute.
Died that
Eugene
day.
or the bull?
Oh, the bull, Dan.
And there's a whole
dumbass.
thing. Yeah, it's such a weird,
Ripped like a real one.
It's a weird line to give Wit because he's supposed to be so understanding all the time to just have this little exasperated.
It's just like it is a bizarre question from Dad.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
why would we distract so Eugene could die faster?
And there's this insane thing we didn't even talk about where Eugene tried to make a tape recorder, a thing
He makes
that
an
you can,
EMP and
the
knocks
thing
out
that you
all the
can
electricity in Mexico.
buy at Radio Shack for $3 at this point in history. And
Yeah.
it's just a feedback machine, so
Right.
he's able to deafen the bull and
By playing RF feedback really loudly? Question mark? It's bizarre and
real dumb.
You know, the stakes are unclear. Nothing about this makes any sense. Visually, you have no idea what's going on, but the crowd goes wild. The crowd goes fucking wild for Eugene because, again, to be very clear, Eugene fucks.
They saw him do it. He fucked the bull.
Fucked the bull.
Like Pasiphae, or however that's pronounced. The mother of the Minotaur. That's what I was doing.
The yogurt?
He what?
There we go.
I'd like to think that after Eugene gets out of the bull ring, because he gets out of the bull ring, he just becomes an adrenaline junkie. Like he's just like, that was the first time I've
that's
ever
a
felt
great
alive.
arc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
then
also,
the rest of the episode is like they're doing their little map shit, but Eugene is just chasing after like harsher and harsher thrills.
It's Crank. It's just Crank with Eugene.
Oh, Mendoza, I see you have a gun. Why don't you use it? I dare you.
Why don't you point it at my forehead?
It's that scene from
Take a bullet out of the chamber. Let's spin.
Well, Wet Hot American Summer, where they go out on the town and they just like end up getting into worse and worse vices over the course of the montage.
Yeah, well, but that's the other thing. Like, I know we're joking about this, but like, I actually think the arc of this should have been that Eugene becomes kind of a hero, right? That he does become sort of the Indiana Jones figure.
Eugene
that would
breaks
be like,
bad, yeah.
Oh, he can't. It has to be Wit.
Yeah,
you know.
Eugene always has to be
of
hero
course.
for 2 seconds because he does the bull thing and then he goes, I'm scared or something, and they're like, well, so much for our new hero.
It's a Pyrrhic victory, right? It's like it's a trivial win with no real stakes, whereas the continuing stakes of the plotline, and again, it's like this just becomes soup. These fucking episodes,
because it turns out that it was Cordova's guy was just happened to be standing out there and managed to be lucky enough to trick Eugene into getting locked up with a bull.
Why?
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
Absurd.
I start losing a lot of the geography too as we go along because they find out that the map was torn, but they didn't notice the map was torn, I guess, before this moment.
They also reveal that Mexico doesn't have receipts.
Well, because they also set that up in part 1 because they're like, the telephone service isn't great in the hotel room.
Not in Mexico City, especially. It's like,
especially not in Mexico City.
At a place called the Huevos Rancheros Hotel, which would have to be a place catering to international tourists.
Like, what a name of a place in the fucking Texas Panhandle. Come on.
I have no idea why you guys are expecting this kind of level of like coherency from Focus on the Family.
I don't expect it, Trevor. I demand it.
So your lanyard just bursts into flames, Brian?
Yes.
So we leave the asphalt meadows of Mexico City behind.
We do. And by the way, we do learn that we shouldn't just go out there without a complete map. It will take a long time. Muchísimo tiempo.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that impressive Spanish, Josh.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah.
Good point. Bueno point.
And we make our way to these to these ruins where, you know, Eugene and Maria Mendoza are climbing these like incredibly narrow stairs to get to the top, where they're gonna find some like human sacrifices.
They have to do the thing from Indiana Jones where he sticks the staff in the ground and the light shines on a thing. So they have to find a rune, an Aztec rune.
Normal thing. It's fine. It's normal.
And that's when Eugene learns about human sacrifice, to which Maria Mendoza says, well,
do you mean to tell me that they actually...
Sí, mi corazón. The Aztecs were a noble people, but they were also very brutal. They built temples que eran fantásticos, and they committed unspeakable evil in them. But that was hundreds of years ago, mi dulce. We are much wiser and more civilized now.
Oh,
I never picked up. I thought by the end of the episode. So I don't want to give it away, but pretty soon after this, Maria double crosses them.
Yeah, she betrays.
I mean, I absolutely do want to.
Fed up with this world.
Yeah, it's like she says, you know what? Forget you. I'm working with Cordova. I really thought at some point she would be like, because I'm Mayan and I want to bring back, or I'm Aztec. I'm sorry. I couldn't remember
Yeah,
which,
she specifically is Aztec.
But like, she doesn't really lay that out. She's just like, oh, you know, like it could have been like a lot of money for my people or whatever. And it was never like,
who are your people?
It was never like, it wasn't like, you know, oh, I want to bring back like the glory of the Aztec civilization and the way that it's been like. She doesn't ever.
Well, because that would be
far.
fucking awesome. You could like elevate it so high, but you would have to commit to a specific choice. And the thing about these episodes that are written by Phil Lawler is that he lacks specificity in his decision making.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like when I tune into a treasure hunt story, I also want to know, like, I'm there for like the exciting action and like the adventures or whatever, but also like, I just kind of want to know what drives a treasure hunter, because they're clearly missing something. And so they want to like fill that something. But this show is just not interested in interrogating any of that.
Right.
No, it's
so
just treasure hunting is
not even a
is a thing that happens in movies, and we're doing a movie plot now.
Yeah.
We sure are.
And like, honestly, it feels like Indiana Jones, the worst sort of excesses of Indiana Jones in that like it's just like the whole thing is let's get the treasure and ignore anything else besides the treasure.
Yeah. And we're all set.
Excelente. And now, mi corazón,
Yeah.
you will give them both to me.
Maria, that's a gun.
See? And I do know how to use it. Please don't make me have to.
I know what a gun
Hand over the
sounds
map.
like.
In AJ's version of this, Eugene instantly becomes rock hard. Like he realizes that this danger is very important to him.
It's just they leave it unsaid.
But this is also, again, just to point up sort of differences here in the writing of different Odyssey episodes. A very long time ago, we listened to that Chicago episode, Waylaid in the Windy City, where Richard Maxwell pulls a gun on Regis Blackguard, and they don't say, uh-oh, that's a gun. It's like,
no, they don't.
Hey, have a piece of this. And immediately by what he says in the sound, you know that it's a gun. You don't need the line, is that a gun? But this guy can't fucking write. I am so, like, if you could understand how I feel in my mind right now, I am so upset that we are back here. I hate where my mind is right now. I am sad. I am upset. I hope that the content is worth it for you motherfuckers.
Hey, Josh, guess what? By the end of this episode, you're going to feel that way about me.
I'm feeling fine.
How are you feeling, Trevor?
I'm good. I'm Gucci. No, I appreciate that instantly after betraying our friends, Mendoza betrays Cordova as well.
Yes.
He's like, I don't care about you either. I'm triple crossing you.
I love the little reveal. Like Eugene has given away his part of the map, and they got the rune and the blah 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 blah. And then we just cut to Eugene and Dan and Whit, and they're like, oh yeah, good thing we Xeroxed the map first.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, well,
okay.
Surprise, because we're in the desert now. Also, they're just setting up camp, like they're jumping around all these places.
There's this exposition where it's like we were behind them in terms of time, but we were able to get back there and catch back up with them again.
It's just such a long drive.
In fact, after this drive, we were able to make camp less than 2 miles from their encampment. How the fuck did they know where they were camping?
At this point, I'm just waiting for sunrise. I'm just waiting for the fucking sunrise so we can move on.
And Eugene really hates Mexico is like the main thing that we need to draw from this.
I hope you won't take offense, Mr. Isidro, but while I find some of your native region to be quite lovely, on the whole, I've discovered it to be relentlessly arid, unyieldingly rugged, and ready to prod, jab, stick, and otherwise poke my person with all manner of rock and branch at a moment's notice.
That's why they call it the desert, Eugene.
Well, perhaps. I, for one, much prefer the greener pastures of Odyssey.
He calls this Dan's native region. Dan is from Nicaragua.
Right.
Dan is like
established this in the
extremely
episode.
friendly about it, though. He's like, oh, Eugene, you're right. Where I come from, here, I guess, is very, very horrible.
The deserts of Nicaragua.
Come on. I mean, maybe given climate change, sure, in another 50 years, but come on.
Yeah.
Oh, God, don't prove Phil Lawler right. Everyone stop climate
would be
change.
so funny.
If for no other
He was
reason than
like,
just to prove Phil Lawler wrong.
Ancient Phil Lawler was like, yeah, I told you.
Told you so.
I told you. I told all of you.
God. Eventually, though, yeah, they catch up, you know.
Yeah,
and
we
then,
talk a little bit about, I won't play the clip, but we talk a little bit about how the cross, people think it might have special powers. Because how else could Cortes have done all of this stuff? How could he have been such a brave soldier for the Lord and done Hitler levels of genocide if he didn't have a magical, mystical cross?
And of course, it's implied that it's because the Lord was on his side, just like the other great, Spanish explorer Christopher Columbus.
What if Dan Ysidro could have all that power for his for his missionary?
Win more souls?
Yeah, to win more souls.
Yeah.
Missionaries have never done anything bad with lots of power.
Never once.
There is a moment where they all charge in to try to get the cross, and this is very like Indiana Jones, the floor is giving out, shit like that.
Jehovah spelled with an I.
But somebody does say, and I quote, "Give it back. Do it. Prompto." Don't tell me that it wasn't prompto. It definitely was. And in that moment, I was able to play as him.
We got to play as prompto.
So there's a big hole. Dan does some climbing that gets described to get the cross. He comes back. Cordova shows up. And then Maria is with Cordova, of course, and then she...
Take it.
I am truly sorry.
No need for sorrow, my dear. The best man won.
Wrong. The best woman won.
Garza.
Don't move, Cordova. No one move.
What are you doing, Maria?
It would seem she isn't immune to greed either.
This has nothing to do with greed. I don't want the cross for myself, but for my people.
You mean you don't
Which
work
ones?
for Cordova?
A stupid, corrupt
All of them.
official? No. I work for my people.
Who are they?
I'm talking about power.
These children coming
Men that
down.
ruled the world. Men like Cortes conquered. I know the legends of the cross. It will make my people great once again.
I forgot.
So she's like a Meshi called nationalist or something?
Well, it's
Like,
not
what the
even
fuck
clear
is
that
this?
by my people she's
think she's
referring to like a
Spanish.
specific ethnic group or something like that. It could just be like her people, like her guys. It's really not clear.
Yeah, this was where I decided that she was trying to say she was Spanish. Like from Castilian Spanish.
She's a Spaniard.
Okay.
Okay.
She's the new conquistador.
Yeah, I was like, well, you really want to bring back Spain, huh? That's like the imperial Spain. I guess like everyone's got to have a hobby.
I don't think Spain wants to bring back Spain.
It's like we're tired.
We're so tired.
Don't worry about it.
And here's the thing. By the time we get to this point in the episode, my notes just become, I'm so tired. Somebody let me sleep.
Yes.
You've come to me on the day that I am so sleepy because there just are I don't feel anything about any of these people.
And this is just the Grail from the Last Crusade. That someone fires a gun, the whole place starts to collapse, and it's like, oh, it's down there, I can reach it, and it's like, don't
of an ice
bother.
cream seller. The cup of an ice cream seller.
They're like, don't do it, get out of here, and they climb out, and then the cross is gone forever.
My favorite part of when a building is collapsing is saying the word sediment like 8 times.
Yes, I agree.
Sorry, Trevor, you were
I
saying?
was going to say, my favorite part is when Eugene goes,
Mr. Whittaker.
Yes, Eugene?
Back in the cavern, you said that the cross can't save anyone.
That's right, Eugene.
But is that not contrary to what Christians in fact do believe?
Not at all. See, Eugene, the cross symbolizes what we believe, that Christ died to save us from sin. It's very precious to all believers, and that's why we revere it. But just like it was wrong for Cordova to want the cross to make him rich, and for Maria to want to use the cross for political power, so it was wrong for Dan to think that the cross had the power to win souls. See, the cross itself doesn't save anybody.
What have we
It's what
learned
Jesus did
today?
on the cross that saves.
So this is the hardline evangelical stance, right? Everything is symbolic. Baptism is symbolic. The cross is symbolic. All of it, always, ever a symbol. All that matters is the thing that it points to.
It's also
was it wrong for Dan to become Catholic?
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes, that's the whole thing. They just Dan got too papist.
Dan, don't forget don't forget what Luther told us.
Honestly, that would have been a more compelling end to the episode than what we got.
AJ, how did this hit you as someone raised?
I mean, it's
to
wrong,
worship
but
the
that's
Pope
fine.
in Rome.
No,
No, it offended my moral sensibilities.
It
actually.
did. It didn't. I actually, when he said it's only a cross, it can't save anybody, I went, oh my God, he admitted. And I was so excited for a minute, and then they addressed it, and I got very, very mad. So I went on this whole...
It's going to go the other direction.
Christ isn't real.
Whit has a
God, can you imagine?
crisis of faith.
Whit is entering his atheist era.
I mean, wouldn't that be interesting,
soul.
though? I don't know if Odyssey ever gets to that, but is there like a crisis of faith episode for like
That's
Whit?
like when
is there
Batman
something that
breaks his
finally
back.
puts him?
It's like it's
I mean, kind of
such a like, and then like Robin and Cassie and all of them have to become like
Connie.
Never getting it right.
Yeah,
Robin and Connie and Lucy have to like become the Robin and Arcane and Nightwing to take up Whit's end.
Yeah, you're not totally wrong about what happens. It's just that it has no crisis of faith aspect.
Right.
Whit is far beyond ever having a crisis
the
of faith.
closest thing that we get to a crisis of faith for Whit is the Mortal Coil, which we listened to with Lev. And the crisis there was he just wants to go to heaven too soon. Like he loves God too much.
well. Yeah.
That's it, you know? It's a symbol.
That was today's adventures in and out of Odyssey, and they really were adventures.
It's what Jesus did on the cross that saves. Chris says those words again verbatim.
Yeah.
This episode is fucking terrible. I hated it. I hate you, Brian. I hate me. I hate us all.
No, I think it's good.
Oh, but Josh, you're going to hate me the most.
Yeah, you promised this. Why?
Okay, here we go.
We'll get there in time. Trevor, what did you think about... I mean, how did you find your first experience in Odyssey?
I liked the first 3 episodes a lot more than the last 2. I found the last 2 extremely rough.
Was it just because of how clumsy it was?
Like I expected it to be offensive. Like when they brought up Cortes, I was like, well, they're not going to have an accurate view of his like deeds, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
But
he was a hero for the Lord.
That's true.
He is
much like Christopher Columbus.
He's on fire for the Catholic Lord. But I did think like the first 3 episodes were like kind of more fun to listen to, even though I knew the first one, the twist when they were like, oh, the treasure.
Right.
Treasure of a missionary. What could it be? And I was like, well, I think I know, but let's just see how this goes.
Well, and when we were talking yesterday about it, like I did say that these are like some very exciting episodes of Adventures in Odyssey because a lot of time it is a lot more like slice of life kind of stuff. And I feel like Brian was very good about curating
Thank you, Brian.
this.
No, thank you, Brian.
Episodes specifically for you, Trevor.
I liked the middle ones a lot. I think like I thought it was cool how there was like a legitimate sort of like strange murdery gothic mystery. I was like, it was funny because I was listening to these as I was we're rewatching Monk. There was an episode where basically like he was at a house where he had gone with Natalie, his helper, and then he had gone there before with his wife for their honeymoon. So he goes back every single year. And he goes back and meets this man, and then everyone at the hotel is like, "Oh, he doesn't exist. You're crazy." Yeah, and it's very similar to this Adventures in Odyssey. It's very similar to like someone being like, "Yeah, no, that's not true. Everything you think is a lie," and at the end you find out the conspiracy. So it was kind of fun to see it another way, but I don't know. I find the only compelling character is Whit, and that makes me upset.
What we get from these episodes, I think MVP of these episodes was Katie Lee as Connie. The character doesn't have much to do, but she does it so well. And Hal Smith really delivers it well. I think we get a bad Eugene, and I think that there was just no way of escaping that writing.
No.
Making Eugene into an idiot for some reason.
Right.
And then everything else was just terrible.
Pardon me, Mr. Whittaker, but perhaps we should be going to Mexico, not Mexico.
So do these episodes, like, do they say anything like larger about the society at large? Because these kind of felt like more like adventure episodes to me, but there might have been just angles that I wasn't clued in on because I'm still getting used to like the evangelical world.
I think for me, and I sort of already alluded to this, it's just the very uneven and inconsistent approach to the value of property rights. You know,
that's what all of these episodes are about.
Yes. Because the thing is, like, you know, supposedly these episodes are about greed, right? Like, don't be too greedy. But in reality, it's about who ought to own things, which I guess greed is sort of that in a way. But what is worth going after and who ought to be the arbiter of who owns what? That to me was kind of the big piece that was really jumping out at me a lot. And ultimately, as we all know, the arbiter is Wit.
Is Wit, yeah.
Yes, from square one, he's watching all 64.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think what I would say it speaks to me about this, like, you know, growing up sort of incidentally next to evangelical culture, is that it kind of speaks to the whole way that adventure is always a brush with people who are not okay, who are people who aren't clean, who shouldn't be like dealt with, who shouldn't be like sort of treated as part of your core group. And like you know, the adventure is having a brush with them and being able to escape. In the way that, you know, like Dan Ysidro is able to escape falling for Cortes's thing, but like, say, you know, Mendoza isn't, right? It's always, you know, your people make the right call.
I think that's so interesting too, because like the title of the show is Adventures in Odyssey, and generally speaking, these adventures are in fact in Odyssey. But when the adventures are outside of Odyssey, that is the point of dramatic tension. And in many of the other episodes of Adventures in Odyssey, the dramatic tension is that people who ought not be in Odyssey come in. So
like people from Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Yes. Mysterious Pittsburghians.
Pittsburgh's only a place filled with broken uncles and crazy kids.
Well, so these episodes were chosen, one, to show just how far this show sort of sprawls out. To give a better example of that, you know, they get into the spy stuff later. They have these adventures. They do the odd couple stuff. They do the theater stories. And it shows that the writers are like, we need to just keep pumping shit out. We need to keep having a story of every variety or we'll go insane. But it's also like they're developing this constant shifting backstory for Wit and Wit's End.
Right.
Both he and the building have been a million things in the past and are now an ice cream shop and an ice cream shop owner.
Right.
But like, in order to have
Americana.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, in order to have like a true, like fully defined character, you just have to keep giving him more things that he was.
More
But
stuff.
all of them really do like create this picture of what they think America is. And America is the capitalist. It is the school teacher. It is the encyclopedia guy. It is our brave boys in intelligence agencies. It is the single family zoning that makes a house in a park. It is
colonialists.
It is the church that burned down, but we kept the tower and the organ around.
It's the missionaries who came through and converted the local natives to the correct way of living.
I know this bad religion song you guys are reciting here.
And the missionaries who go out from where we are to continue to convert all of the natives who are maybe Aztec nationalists or something. Who knows?
The Castilians. Ferdinand and Isabella pilled.
And so that is the thing that you need to keep in mind, is that these things are both just, we're scrambling. We have to keep churning out more content. And this is what we believe things should really be.
Yes.
This is Thomas More. This is utopia. This is the land that doesn't exist but should.
Yeah.
The last stop at Willoughby.
Wow.
Trevor, do you want to do a very quick little plug again at the end here for your show?
Real quick, because you've all been so kind to listen to me already. Podcast is No Cartridge. Go check me out there if you liked what I did here, which is to say add on to conversations in non-particularly helpful ways, but help others have conversations around me.
That's called being a good interviewer, goddammit, Trevor.
Yes.
You're going to say nice things about yourself.
I've been on the show to talk about a game that I like to talk about on this show, even though we've never actually done an episode on it.
Yeah.
Thief 2.
Yeah.
The Metal Age.
Too dark.
Garrett himself.
And I got to go on and talk about a game that we will never talk about on this podcast called Bad Mojo.
You guys should play Bad Mojo.
Hell yeah.
But you really should play Bad Mojo.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes.
It's really kind of rules.
Also, if you want more Worst of All Possible Worlds, you may have noticed every other episode is just a teaser. We give you a little preview to give you that little morsel of premium. There it is. So if you want to experience that feeling, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/worstofall, sign up for $5 a month. You'll get full access to all of our premium episodes, some other cool shit. Fancy Movie Time, which is Brian and AJ talking about fancy movies. It's great.
Yeah.
Have a gander. You're gonna love what you're gonna love how you look.
I guarantee it.
So in the first part of this episode, there was a lot of slander thrown at a joke of mine, a bit that I was trying to develop about deaf cabbage for cutie. And during
Just
the
shaking
second
my
half,
head right now.
During the second half, you may have noticed that my verbiage was a little strange. I kept referring to things like asphalt meadows and saying Thank You for Today.
Yeah, no, I
and Kintsugi. And Codes and Keys.
Sure.
And Narrow Stairs.
Right, okay.
And Plans.
Yeah.
And you can play these songs with chords.
Okay.
And the photo album. And we have the facts and we're voting yes.
Okay.
And also something about airplanes.
All right.
All titles of Death Cab for Cutie albums. I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
What do you want me to say? Congratulations. I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. See you next week.
Thank you.